All right, everybody, welcome back to Cool's Reviews Deep Dives. As per usual, we got a couple guests here with us. We do got Nick, who you guys should know from other deep dives, as well as the Pop Culture Podcast, as well as David, who you should know from a couple of our shows, as well as his own channel, Abnormal Voyages. How you guys doing today?
Doing good. How about yourself?
Surviving. We're gonna be here talking Wicked, a movie, musical, play, unfortunately book, and some other stuff. Maybe some other references mixed in. Hey, you know what? At least Barnes and Noble. Oh, it won't let me. At least Barnes and
There we
Noble
go.
made
There
it
we
look
go.
nice.
I will say it is a beautiful looking version that they made. That looks really good.
The
Yeah, and
version I have, the version I have is just the movie poster version. I don't know if that came through or not yet.
Yeah, there we go.
It's just the movie poster version.
See, what I think is funny about the movie version poster in particular, I've heard there's a lot of parents that have been buying the book for their kids for like Christmas and things like that. They are in for a shock.
It's very
Well, I mean-
adult.
Yes. It is extremely adult compared like the Broadway show was just inspired by the story. It is only like maybe 10% of what the book is.
Yeah. No, I realized that once we got past the Philosopher Club scene where the tiger makes love to a lady, and I was like, what the hell am I reading?
And there were several other participants.
Yeah. One was like strapped to the tiger.
Yep. And
And
it goes into detail, like the warmth of his fur. Like, oh, can't.
Yeah.
Can't.
I was like, who writes this?
Also, you gotta edit that out. That's spoilers.
Oh, yeah. If you guys are watching this or haven't seen a play that came out in the 2000s, read the book that came out in the 80s.
That book did not come out in the 80s.
No, the book came out in 96, I think, 95 or 96.
Oh, so it came out the same year as Harry Potter.
Down. But yeah, so we're doing this basically just over like part one of the movie and what leads up to like that, right? That's the information. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we're just gonna do part one, maybe some Easter eggs and some tie-ins with obviously The Wizard of Oz, the stage play, maybe the book. The book's vastly different than the movie.
Now I might be wrong. Aren't we gonna do a couple of these on different Oz properties, kind of leading up to the part two next year?
Yes, yeah, I think that's
Awesome.
going to be what we want to do. Is obviously we'll cover the original Wizard of Oz and the book. Maybe we'll do like Great and Powerful. We'll do some of the other tie-in books.
Maybe some of those crazy sequels like Return to Oz and all those.
Yeah. And I actually know some people said you got to check that one out because that one's actually kind of cool.
You know what? I've never seen it. I know a little bit about it. When I went to the Wizard of Oz Museum in Kansas, they had a whole display that had some of the characters. My friend Blake, he says that it's a great movie. He says some of the characters are better in that than they are in the original. So I love the guy that looks kind of like Scarecrow, but he's got like a jack-o'-lantern head. I think his name is actually TikTok. Or no, TikTok is like a robot, but I don't know. It looks good. I've just never seen it.
TikTok's also a religion in here and an app in our real life. So
Yeah.
Is it foreshadowing? I don't know. Maybe. But yeah, no, I heard it's good. At first I thought I heard it was bad, but then the more people have talked to about it say it's actually pretty good, and it's obviously inspired. I think what book is it?
I think it's
two or three.
Yeah, it's like the actual sequel.
Yeah.
Like Return to Oz, I think. Yeah, I think the people that say it's bad, I think that's in the sense of like if you don't like the cheesiness of like the 80s, 90s era kind of, then if you think Halloweentown is bad, you're probably not going to like this. It's kind of what it looks like to me.
It's one of those movies, I guess. It depends when you saw it. A lot of people have really good feelings towards movies that maybe are bad because they saw as kids, or vice versa. They're like, I heard this was really good, but I saw when I was an adult, not as good,
Yeah, like if you grew up with something, it tends to give you that kind of nostalgia glasses about it. And then somebody watching it now will be like, I don't get it.
Well, let's go down this route.
That's how I feel about Free Willy now. I used to love Free Willy as a kid, and now
it was great as a kid.
And knowing the real life implications of that animal, no, there's no reason a 12-year-old should be anywhere near it.
Yeah, in reality, that whale would have killed that kid way early on.
Oh yeah, dragged them to the bottom of the tank, like right then
Yeah,
and there.
and then drowned him, played with them a little bit, thrown him out, and they'd be done.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I mean, speaking of real life, maybe at some point we will cover that movie because they really did free the whale that played Free Willy in that movie. Wasn't as
Okay.
like exciting as when it jumped over the wall
Well,
into
yeah.
the ocean, but they, you know, they
But
freed
there's-
that
Did
whale.
they do? Did they do
There's
a
a silver
follow-up?
lining here.
Did they
What
see
you
like
say.
how did it live in the wild after that?
Yeah, I think
I'm
it
sure
lived
not well.
for I think it lived for like 10 or so years.
That's not that long in whale years.
No, but how old was it already? I think they only lived to like 30 or something.
You know what?
Let's find
I'm
out.
not. I'm no tangent. We're not doing this.
Oh yeah, we were getting off the rails already.
I was about to Google how long do whales live?
Some whales live for a long time, like some sharks. Greenland shark, there's one that's over 500 years old. So
Wow. And I mean,
Orca-
I know Galapagos turtles and stuff live forever.
Orca lifespan in the wild is 50 to 90 years, and then included when I simply Googled it, sharks are 20 to 30, blue whales are 80 to 90, and humpback whales are 80 to 90.
See, that's what I thought. I thought whales are very much like us.
The average
Very similar.
lifespan for male killer whales is about 30 years, but they can live up to at least 60 years. Females typically live about 50 years, but can live up to 90.
I wonder if it's because males are kind of aggressive towards each other. I wonder if that plays a part, or
Kiko, the orca who played Free Willy, lived to be 27.
was it a male or a female?
Let's see. I think it was a male, but he died of pneumonia.
I did not know till just now that whales could get that.
We'll see. This you come for Wicked, you leave with knowledge of whales. That's what deep dives are for.
I mean, that is one of the saddest episodes ever of South Park.
Kiko was a male.
Yeah, did you guys see that South Park episode where they were like making fun of Free Willy?
No.
The whale, they want to get it to space, and they convince the whole country to get behind them to shoot the whale into it, like to the moon, and at the end, it's literally just a dead whale on the moon. It's bad. It's super sad, but it's pretty funny.
All right. So now that we've talked about whales, I'm leaving this all in too. I'm not cutting any of it out. People came for Wicked. They are going to get some whale knowledge today. Plus, you know, it could be an Easter egg of ours leading up to a Free Willy episode. But let's get back to Wizard of Oz. David, what was your first introduction into Wizard of Oz?
Wizard of Oz or Wicked?
Wizard of Oz, like in general.
Just in general? Oh,
Yeah.
Definitely like a little kid, you know, my mom showing it to me for the first time. It was one of her favorite movies growing up. So she shared that with me. And I think that's pretty much everybody's story of seeing it for the first time. It's a great family classic movie, you know, introducing to all the classic characters and everything. Oddly enough, I don't think I actually read the book until I was much older. I think I was actually, if not high school, maybe even out of high school before I read the original Wizard of Oz book. And there's a little, you know, some differences, but I get, especially back then, why those would be cut out of the movie. There's some stuff that it was difficult to do or just didn't work as well. But yeah, definitely, you know, it's one of those stories that's always been a part of my life.
Nick, what about you?
Basically the same as David. I was shown the original movie when I was a young kid. It's a classic. It's a very iconic film. When I didn't realize until actually like a few months ago that books were even involved with it. I just thought it was just a thing back in the day. But my parents told me a story about how one of my grandparents, I think it was my grandma's dad or somebody in my family dated Judy Garland in high school.
Wow.
Yeah. So
talk about the one that got away.
I was this close to not existing.
Or maybe you still would have existed just in a more fabulous family, you know?
Maybe I would have still been like, excuse me, I don't take a crap for anything less than $60,000. Thank you.
Hey, you know, it's kind of fun to learn some of these connections. So when did they date? Like in high school?
Yeah, they dated when like before the Wizard of Oz was made, and yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Judy Garland.
Oh, that was
She
much
was
younger
from
then, because she was pretty young.
Yeah, she was really young. She grew up in Minnesota, from what I remember, and then some agent brought her up to California for that movie.
All right, so yeah, it looks like she was 16 when she played Dorothy. So probably like middle school type A, like junior high back then.
Or maybe it was like right before. I don't know. I just was told that they dated.
Add it to the Wikipedia, David.
Back in.
Yeah, for myself too, I would say I remember watching as a kid. I don't remember where. I watched it a few times. I mean, obviously, I think everyone knows what Wizard of Oz is. And then I think I saw some connections at one point or another in like the museum because they have a tornado machine. And so that's kind of a fun way to get kids involved. But also the MGM in Las Vegas used to be very Wizard of Oz themed. They had actors walking around, and that's why it's gold or green and stuff like that, and had the lions. And so yeah, that was Wizard of Oz. Didn't read the books until I was much older, I think, like everyone else has said. And I've only have the first one and the Wicked books, so I haven't read any of the sequels. So I'm excited if we pick different sequels for the different movies, or different, yeah, sequel books for different movies, just to get some knowledge of those ones. David, jump into Wicked. What was your first like experience with Wicked?
As far as Wicked goes, I grew up like a theater kid. I was in plays since probably a little before middle school and onward. Always loved performing and things like that. It's probably what led to what doing right now. And I remember my freshman year of high school. Wicked was, it had recently come out. It was a big deal, and the touring like show was going to be coming right there where we were. We were going to do a field trip, my like advanced theater class, and we were all going to go see it there. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And of course, we knew about it months and months in advance, so there was plenty of time for, as theater kids do, get super obsessed with it. So listening to the album, loving the music and everything, and then I was like, I'm going to read the book. So I read the whole book before I went. And I was like, I don't want to go see this on stage. What? And I was like, I don't get how that music fits with what's going on over here. But, still was like, everybody loved the show. So I was like, all right, I'm definitely still excited to go. And then seeing the production, it was absolutely gorgeous. Still probably one of the top 3 shows that I've ever seen in person. It is so well done. The music is fantastic. The pacing is great. The characters are good. The scenery, the sets, especially like as you see in the movie when they go to the Emerald City with One Short Day, that on stage, absolutely spectacular. It is so pretty. Everything is green in all the sets. And they did have in the musical, they do a little bit like what the books do, and everybody in that's in the Emerald City is wearing green glasses. It's not so much that everything is just green, it's that you have to wear the emerald shades like when you're in the city. So everybody's wearing these like really cool green shades. And what I thought was cool, at least as a freshman in high school, during intermission, you could buy the shades that they just used on stage of like all the cast and everything. So you could like take home a prop. I thought that was kind of cool. That was pretty neat.
Cool.
But it's really well done. They definitely give you like you get such literal goosebumps seeing Defying Gravity going into intermission at the very end of that like high note, all the lights go down, like absolutely awesome. It's super cool. But loved it since then. It's got super catchy music. Was always excited about the movie. I know it was a long process for the movie to come out. I think they've been working on it for like over a decade of, yeah, we're gonna do it, and then it would stall out, get started. Who are they gonna cast? Like originally, I think they wanted to use Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth, the originals, and it just took so long that there's no way they could do it at their ages anymore, which very understandable. And I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty on the fence on if this was going to be a good movie or not. I had my doubts. Ariana Grande as Glinda, I was not sold at all through the entire. Not until I was there in the theater watching it did I become a believer. But I personally think they, as somebody, read the book, seen the show, grew up with it, I've had it for over a decade in my life with the music and such, and a fan of theater. I think they knocked it out of the park. I think it was a fantastic movie, and I'm excited to see what they do with part two, because it gets definitely a little darker, a little deeper and twisted into things. So, the first part was kind of the lighter and catchier songs, I would say. Part two, it's going to be really interesting to see what they do with it.
Now, Nick, what about you? Did you get to see the play or anything like that, or just the movie?
I have only got to see the movie. I did have a girlfriend in college who was very obsessed with theater and very much a theater person, and she got me like kind of into that stuff while we knew each other, and I still am into it now a little bit. But I didn't really get into theater much. I took like a theater class, the introductory theater class, like my senior year of high school, and I got to read some cool plays like The Odd Couple, one of my favorites. But like I said, my ex-girlfriend showed me Defying Gravity, originally done by Idina Menzel, and I was blown away by that song. And when I saw it in the theater, I was very like, oh my god, like this is like I felt cathartic seeing it in the theater. And I'm the same way with David. I'm not a big fan of Ariana Grande, and I was like, I don't think Ariana is going to be able to pull this part off, like, period. She's going to be too much of an Ariana. She's going to be too much of herself instead of anything else. And then when I was in the theater, I was like, oh. I mean, she's a little bit of herself, like, during, like, Popular and all that stuff. But
I feel like it fits her. Like, it
fits the character as well. It fit the character as well as fitting Ariana, like, herself. And then I think one of my favorite parts in the movie was right when they're going to Emerald City. And Elphaba is like, come on. And you hear Glinda like, I couldn't. Like, this is your mom. Okay, I'm coming. Like, I thought,
right, like, oh, yeah, so much protest.
I was like, that was funny. But yeah, no, this is my first, outside of just listening to YouTube videos and all that stuff, this is my first time seeing Wicked. The last time it was coming through town here in Denver, but the cheapest ticket was like $180.
Like, it's crazy that for a show that's been running for over a decade, they can still charge basically whatever they want, and people are going to pay it. Like, they're going to be there. It's kind of like Hamilton. I feel like that's going to be making the circuits for forever now.
Mm-hmm.
It's just one of those like Broadway staples at this point. I feel like every couple of years, it's going to be going through all the major cities.
Yeah, I'll say my first experience with Wicked was just seeing the poster. I remember I saw it in Vegas. And it was there just for a limited time in Vegas when we were there. We didn't go see it that time, and then next year when we went back, Wicked was there again. So I just thought Wicked was always in Las Vegas.
I mean, it would fit. They'd probably have the audience for it.
It right? Would absolutely fit.
If they had a residency that just stayed there, they'd probably do pretty well.
We'll see that's going to be a question for later in the episode, but I do have kind of a question regarding that. But yeah, that was kind of my thing. And obviously Vegas at one point, like I said, had more of a Wizard of Oz type of thing going on. And so to me, it made sense. And then I realized it travels, and I've seen a couple times it's been on TV or like YouTube, like people will show it, or there's special showings you can pay to watch or whatever. I've not seen it in person. And then I saw the movie, didn't know I was going into 3D until they were like, yo, here's your glasses. And I was like, crap, I didn't know it was 3D. And then I watched it. They were so close to me. It was like they were right there.
I felt part of the action.
I was like, whoa.
You defied gravity right next to her.
It was scary at points. I was like, I am falling. Like, somebody help me. No. And then I was like, oh, I better read the book. I've heard the negative stuff regarding the book, but I knew we were going to probably do a deep dive type of thing to kind of bounce the idea around. So I was like, oh, let's read the book. And then I read the book, and there's a lot of parts in there. I'm like, you know what? That's for the better. That's not in the movie, because, wow.
And you haven't even finished it yet.
No, I got through. Well, we'll get to the book in a second, but yeah, I guess it's broken up into like mini books, and there's chapters in the mini books. But yeah. I got through the one where she's like in hiding, and then
what's his name? I think there's like a time skip right after she leaves the Emerald City and everything.
Yeah, and then Fiora, right? Is his name?
Fiera.
Fiera. Him
She's like
and
hiding out around him, right?
yeah, and that's all they do is just like romp around with each other for that entire chapter or the entire book. I was like, oh, it's interesting. So yeah, that was mine.
So, speaking about the musical specifically, as beloved as it is now, as much as everybody's, crazy about it, do you know it did not win the Tony Award when it came out?
What won? What won?
It was nominated for Best Musical, Best New Musical and everything. It got beat by Avenue Q.
I don't even know what that is.
Avenue Q is hilarious. It is basically Sesame Street for adults, where it's done with puppets. There's a couple of, like Sesame Street, there's a couple of like live actor roles too, but it's mostly puppets. The main character is a guy that moved to New York. He studied English. He got his BA in English, and he's like, well, what the hell do you do with a degree in English? He can't afford the rent on Avenue A, so he has to keep going all the way to Avenue Q, where he can finally afford to live there. And he's in an apartment building where Gary Coleman is the superintendent. He runs the building. It's really funny. That you may have heard the song. Have you ever heard "The Internet Is for Porn"?
No,
I've heard that.
That's one
I
of the
think I've heard
songs
that
that
song
came from-
once.
It's like I said, it's like Sesame Street, but for adults. The Bert and Ernie dynamic of two characters. The one that would be Bert is super gay. And there's a whole song about it'd be okay if you were gay, because he never wants to like come out of the closet, but everybody knows he's like super flamboyant. It's really funny. But that show won basically the Triple Crown of theater and got like Best New Musical, Best New Song, all that. And Wicked did not win any of those.
It's always,
I know.
I feel like it's always the sleepers that like end up doing better in the
Sometimes,
long run.
To be fair, I think it's also that they have a really good sense of humor. Like Book of Mormon won the year that it was up for the Tonys when it came out. And that's hilarious. That's a great, I can't wait for that movie to come out. I know they're working on that now. The guys who do South Park, that's their musical. And they're going to be making the live action soon. That was great. But then you have other stuff like, again, Hamilton swept everything.
Can't wait for the Book of Mormon to come out in like movies, theaters, because then like everyone's gonna be complaining like, why is this isn't appropriate for kids and Mormons? It's like, yeah, it's not supposed to be. Just do a little bit of research.
If you know that it's from the guys who made South Park, that should be all you need to know.
Right. Yeah. Well, like David said, there's about to be a lot of parents having to explain a lot of different things to their kids after they read Wicked.
Honestly, there's some things in that book that I still need explained to me.
David's like, I just read a chapter. I need an adult.
I need a more adult for this because.
All right, so let's get into the book, David. First off, do you have a Goodreads?
No.
Okay.
I don't use it, but I have one.
I was gonna say I went on Wicked, and the top review was from a David.
That's not me.
Okay, because you were the David in there was like, I loved the play, and then I went and read the book, and I was like, what the heck is this?
Yeah, I did read the book first, and it almost made me not go to the play. I will say that, because I was so much like, I liked The Wizard of Oz, but this, I don't know what this is.
I was surprised when I was researching it to find out that the author of Wicked was not the same author of The Wizard of Oz.
God, no. God, no.
I understand. No, listen, I understand that. I understand it now, but that part still throws me off. Because it's like, why are you writing a book based off of someone else's work?
Well,
that's the only part of it that throws me off.
I think that it kind of kicked off the trend of the like villain side of the story, because there's quite a few stories out there now that they'll take classic well-known villains and be like, no, you didn't get the whole story, you misunderstood, exactly. There's a lot of things like that I feel like kind of came off of the Wicked trend. Are you guys familiar with a Harry Potter musical? Have y'all ever heard of that?
I've heard of it.
So it was this group that's out of I believe they're in the Chicago area. They Star Kid Productions, and their big hit that they did in college was a Harry Potter musical, and it's basically a parody of Harry Potter in a musical form. They did a couple of those, and then they've done a bunch of other shows since then. They've gotten really big. But one of the shows they came out with in that era was called Twisted, but it was like Wicked, but it was about Jafar from Aladdin, and was like his side of things and how he wasn't the bad guy. Like, it was really funny. So I think a lot of people have taken that idea and made it into something really cool. I do think this guy might have been one of the first to kind of kick that off with how big it got. But luckily, from what I've seen, nobody's taken it as weird as he did in that book.
Well, and I was going to say, so Frank Baum, he has 14 books for Oz, and I think like a 15 one that's like a compilation. But then there's a lady, let's see, Ruth Thompson came and wrote 15 through 40, I think. 15 through 40 were her, and then there's some other people. So I think there's like 100 books about Wizard of Oz at this point.
Well, I do know,
quite a few.
From what I understand, again, when I was at the Oz Museum, it starts off talking about the books and everything. Frank L. Baum himself didn't want to write any more about that world. He pretty much did the first one, and he was set. He was okay. He wanted to keep doing other things, and that became just what he could sell. And he needed the money. His family liked the book, so he just kind of kept going with them. But it was not nearly as big a passion for him as I think some people think it was. It wasn't like a J.K. Rowling thing where they like loved their work the whole way or something like that. He was pretty okay getting out of there. And unfortunately, nothing else that he pitched took off. It was like, Frank, you're good at this, do more. And that's kind of what he went with. I also don't think I believe he was passed before he could see what Wizard of Oz became. I mean, kind of like how we all mentioned, like seeing it as a kid and all. I think it's incredible that this is one of those unique stories that is just part of culture. Like, everybody knows the Wizard of Oz. Everybody knows about, There's No Place Like Home, the Scarecrow, Tin Man and Lion, Follow the Yellow Brick Road. It's
Somewhere
funny
Over the
that it's
Rainbow.
just become, exactly, it's these things that they've just become so integral to the threads of society, and nobody can really pinpoint. Like, we say we saw it as kids, but nobody's really like, oh yeah, it was this day. It doesn't really happen. It just kind of, I know it. There's not really something that you have to remember, like being taught this or your first experience. It's like, this is just part of culture of what you know. And this is one of those stories that's become, I think, such a building block of Western culture.
Well,
To be fair, there's not a lot I can do that with my life on. There's not a lot of, I was here in this specific moment when this.
Right, but I think there's a lot more things, though, that you know it, but you don't necessarily expect everybody else to. Like, if I brought up something from Wizard of Oz and somebody is like, what is that? I'd be like, come on. It's kind of like Santa Claus. Who doesn't know who Santa is? Do you know what I mean? I feel like it's just one of those things that, like Cinderella, classic, stories that you just feel like at a certain point, everybody knows this. And it'd be harder to believe that you hadn't heard of this than, anything else.
You just made me think of, you mentioned Cinderella, and it just made me think of the rabbit hole that is the new Snow White film coming out.
Jeez, the pile of vomit.
It's such a bad iceberg right there, thinking about it.
I Disney can still pull the plug. Kind of like what...
No, they can't. They can't now because it's already being advertised in...
I wish they would do what WB did when they were just like, you know what? Nobody wants to see that Batgirl movie. We're just going to pull it, tax write-up. Like, they could have done that.
They could have, but now they have to go over $1 billion to break even.
It's not going to happen.
No, there's no way.
I have not met one person anywhere, even online, that's been like, I can't wait to check this out.
But I guarantee you've met a lot of people who are like, yeah, that Rachel girl? No.
Yeah, it's not single-handedly her, but it's like 80% her.
Oh, definitely not single-handedly, but I would say she's like 95% of the problem.
she's ruined that movie, and I think a lot of her reputation. It's going to take a lot for people to get on her side after everything that went down with that.
Yeah,
Also, in what world do we believe that she's considered fairer than Gal Gadot?
True.
Just saying.
I mean, I wouldn't even consider her fairer than any of her castmates.
the CGI dwarves.
Yeah, the CGI dwarves. But I'm just saying that's supposed to
Throw
be
one
the
of them
entire,
in. Throw one of them in the
like-
casket. I'd much rather
like that is
kiss
the
shit.
crux of the movie. Is that the queen is jealous that Snow White is more beautiful than she is, so she's got to take her out. And I'm sorry, that is stretching believability further than I can take it. That because Gal Gadot is still looking smoking. Even in the trailers, you're like, oh, she's looking hot. It's not gonna work.
It is so funny to me. I joined Quora a little while ago. Like I signed up to get like some stories from them in my email, so I'll just read throughout randomly. And I swear to you, it's like every like other week now, but there's always so many questioning of Gal Gadot's acting skills. It's like, is she really a good actress, or is she just there as eye candy?
I mean, that's a fair question.
I mean,
Fast and Furious
I
was definitely.
understand.
She's not terrible. There's way worse actors out there that are in movies every day.
I understand that
So-
there are people. I understand there are people who are going to ask that question. What I don't understand is why they feel the need to ask that question to the entire internet for everyone to see.
I mean, it's kind of like, I mean, if we turn it to men, like, is Will Ferrell really that good an actor, or is he just Will Ferrell?
He is that good of an actor, and I will give you one movie.
I think there's several. Like, he's done some dramatic roles that I think are awesome.
Oh,
Same
yeah,
with
he has done some dramatic roles, but there's one movie of his in particular that really made me appreciate his acting chops, and that was Stranger Than Fiction.
Yeah, I mentioned that the other day. I like that
Yeah.
one.
I got a couple issues with that movie, but overall, and the acting is top notch.
The acting is top notch. I think Will Ferrell pulled that off. He's not. He's still Will Ferrell, but he toned it back a lot for that one.
I think so. Yeah, he doesn't detract from it.
Mm-hmm.
But I know there are some actors that people like, oh, they always play. They're just themselves. Like, I guess, but would they keep getting cast if you weren't going to see it?
Right.
I think Jim Carrey's one of those actors.
Jim Carrey plays one part basically. Jim Carrey.
And I agree
Jeff
with
Goldblum.
that. I do agree with that. There are some roles Jim Carrey has done, like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which he wasn't really playing himself in that film. But a lot of people don't think of that film when they think of Jim Carrey. They think of
one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies,
stuff like that.
Yeah, one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies is probably The Truman Show.
I didn't see that one until I was in college, but that is a good one.
And he's still Jim Carrey, but not like the Jim Carrey you expect, from like those other like wacky movies. He's just a guy. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think he's a great actor. I got nothing against Jim Carrey.
I love that he brutally came out honest. He came out really brutally honest. He's like, I did Sonic 3 because I wanted a paycheck. I don't blame the guy for that.
I mean, and you get to be an iconic video game character, and I think overall these are probably some of the better video game based movies that are out there. At least he's not in just straight up garbage heaps.
I'm still amazed that Sonic has 3 movies and a mini series. Like based off of how the reaction to the first like reveal of the first one was. The first movie was meh for me because I don't really like Sonic. But knowing how far it's come is kind of amazing to look at.
I mean, I think they've all been good. Not great. Nothing groundbreaking. But I think where they've succeeded beyond that first reveal, which everybody agreed was the worst thing ever, I think they've done a good job of staying true to the characters since that.
Yeah.
Bringing in Knuckles and Tails, I think they've been very true to those characters and the dynamics and stuff. I'm interested to see how Keanu Reeves' Shadow does. But Wicked.
Anyway, back to Wicked.
Wait, we came here to talk Wicked?
You tried, Keegan. You're like Jeff Goldblum.
Jeff Goldblum?
We came to talk Wicked, and we talked about whales and Sonic.
Actually, that Jeff Goldblum reference was in there to try to talk about The Fly. Jeff Goldblum's in here. No, I did look up though. L. Frank Baum passed away in 1919, so 20 whole years before the movie would even come out.
A lot of people don't know this, but I do believe there was actually an attempt. They made a movie before the one that we all know.
Well, there
That
was a stage
he was
show
involved
too.
with. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there was one that I think it was like I don't even think it went to theaters. I think it was like the early days of TV maybe or something. I'd have to check. It might have been movies. But he was involved, I believe, in an earlier attempt at a movie or something like that. And I don't think it went very well.
Yeah, let's see. Let's bring up 1902, which is obviously going to be the play. There's a 15-minute short film in 1910, it says.
Yeah, the first Wizard of Oz movie was called The Wonderful Wizard of Oz and was released in 1910. Considered the earliest surviving film adaptation of L. Frank Baum's novel, and it was silent for the time period, I guess. Yeah. So I do think he had his blessing on that and was involved somewhat, at least the look and stuff. But from what I understand, I do think they took a lot of those, like the things that he was happy with in that and incorporated it into the later one.
Yeah. Now there was a 1925 one that came out as well. It might have been silent as well.
And I think it says a lot that nobody's really made a Wizard of Oz movie since the original. It's all been these like putting their own twist on it kind of things. Nobody's
Or
tried
like
to read
sort of sequel, prequel kind of
exactly.
deals.
It's always been the well, here's our version. Nobody's gone up to be like, fuck you guys, we're gonna do our own Wizard of Oz, because they just can't compete with it even coming up to 100 years later.
Wasn't there like a side film or whatever with James Franco?
Oz, Great and Powerful.
Oz the Great and Powerful. That was actually, I know we'll do a deep dive on that later on, but that wasn't too bad.
I've not seen it actually.
It was kind of like Wicked, but for the wizard. As if he, like his story, and he starts out as literally like a magician who's working in a carnival in Kansas. He basically created the Wicked Witch and Glinda and everything. It's all in that one. It's all the wizard's fault.
Just like Batman. So you've never seen the Wizard and Batman in the same room, so. But no, it's interesting too. I mean, it's a 124-year-old property at this point, and it really, a lot of people, and we'll get to it when we do that actual deep dive in the Wizard of Oz. It's a political satire in a way. The original one about the election with McKinley and stuff like that, to have gone on to have like this vast plethora of material is extraordinary. I think just like to live on from
again, just the fact that it's such a cultural touchstone now.
Yeah, and that it spawns something like this. I'm trying to think of.
I would be interested to know what Frank L. Baum's opinion of everything would be if he could see like today. Like if he could see the movie Wicked, see the and see just everything that his property became. It'd be very interesting to see what his take on all of that would be.
See, I think the movie-wise, maybe more positive. Book-wise, I don't know if he's going for that, especially from the time period he was from.
He would probably have a stroke if he saw that movie. Considering the technology now from then, he'd be like, "What is this magic?"
Hang on, what's the lion doing here? What's happening in this chapter?
Is that a real lion?
No. She's evil. What?
yeah. No. I specifically called her the Wicked Witch of the West.
Really couldn't make it clearer, guys. I don't.
She was bad. She melted. She died.
So her name was Glinda? What does that even mean? That's not a name. Okay, it's Glinda. What are you guys doing?
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know if he'd be all for everything, but let's get into the book, David.
If we have to.
Unfortunately, it is a Wicked book, so we're going to have to cover it.
You know what? There is one thing that I will give the book.
Okay.
The book, in a way that the musical really didn't, and the movie, I think, briefly touched on like one time, the book goes out of their way to bring up the fact that she cannot get wet.
Mm-hmm.
Like the whole thing about water. Like I think she even bathed in like an oil, like butter, like it was something weird.
Yeah, it was like
kind of
an
oils.
oil. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, they definitely set up the fact that Dorothy kills her in the end with a bucket of water and she melts. I think in the movie, the only thing I saw is when the rain was coming in and Madame Morrible was like, oh, you can't get wet, and like conjured up something like an umbrella or whatever. Like, that was the only thing I caught that any reference to the wet. Whereas in the book, they do make it very clear that if she gets wet, bad things happen. So they do foreshadow that well. It still goes down the same way that it's going to be a bucket of water, she melts. Happens in the musical. It was alluded to in the first part of this movie where we just see like the hat and everything. So I think they're still going to do it. It's just right now we have no idea why that would happen.
I don't think they're going to do it.
You don't think they're going to melt her?
No, I think you see her in the beginning of the movie riding off into the sunset.
Oh, okay. So are we doing spoilers? Are we cool to talk about that, or are we waiting?
We'll wait, but I'm just saying. We'll get to the
spoiler I can tell you, at least in the musical.
I know what happens in the musical, and I think they're going with that.
That's also another way that you think they're going to do what the musical did, right?
Yeah, because the book doesn't go that way, right? She dies.
No, in the book, she's.
Hey guys, come on! Spoiler warning.
Whoa! boop, 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 boop,
Spoilers.
Boop, boop, boop.
Okay, now say what you want to say.
Yeah, so in the musical, she does still melt, but it's more of a like trick to get the wizard to help out Dorothy, and all that stuff, like to end her basically sentence of being in exile and everything, give them the death of a villain to be fine. And then after the events of the Wizard of Oz, once Dorothy's gotten home, wizard's out of the picture and everything, the Scarecrow, who is Fiyero, gets his like memories back and remembers her, and he shows up to find her, and she's just kind of secreted herself away, and her and Fiyero basically leave Oz. They go into another world, which is kind of alluded to be our world. And they come and live happily ever after together out of Oz.
Yeah, well, if we're going to talk about that, my reasoning is you see Fiero's horse in the beginning riding off with someone in a black cloak that looks just like the one she wears at the end of the movie.
See, but you also see the Scarecrow with Dorothy and them on the road.
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about like a trailer for part 2, or what are you talking about?
No, this is at the very beginning of the movie.
Yeah, in the beginning of the movie, you see the whole, all 4 of them walking back to Emerald City after killing.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then you see someone riding off on Fiero's horse.
So I don't think it can't be the same, or at least that's not Fiero. It could be his horse. Like they could have
I think it's her.
But at that point, if we're going by what the musical does, at least Fiyero has no idea who she is. Because basically he gets captured by the wizard's forces, Madame Morrible, so all that, and he gets basically, they find out he's been helping her, so they're like, we're gonna fucking kill you. So she, in a panic, tries to do a spell that will stop them from hurting him, but she doesn't really know what she's doing, and it ends up being a spell that she's like, make it so that his bones don't break, all this stuff, and it turns him into a straw. And then I guess just his personality, because dancing through life, all the like, mindless and careless, it's all alluding to the Scarecrows if I only had a brain. So that part of him kind of takes over as his personality, and he doesn't have any memory of who he was before being the Scarecrow.
Yeah. All right, now spoilers over. You're good to continue. We've talked about it.
You might just want to edit that out even. I don't know if people want to... Now, did you guys notice in One Short Day at the very end, of course, we had the huge cameo from Kristen and Idina being like the one singing with them and everything. But the very, very end, right before they go in, where the guy says, the wizard will see you now, that's the author of the book.
Of the book or the music?
I believe it's the actual author of the book. I think that's where they put him in. They
should have given him some soap, put it in his mouth.
Interesting. I did think it was cool when Idina and the other actress did show up in the film. It's like, hey,
and nice way to pay their
tribute.
Iconic little singing parts. Yeah,
nice way to pay tribute to it all.
And I like that it was a little longer and not just like a brief cameo. Like you don't just see them and be like, oh, they actually kind of got a little role.
Yeah, it's not like a cameo where they're ordering like sandwiches at the like sandwich shop or something like that.
Right, right.
Where you're scripting out your scene while Lois Lane walked past the glass right there.
Now, I do know there was also a lot of other famous Glinda and Elphabas in the movie that got, like, the ones that played it originally in the West End in London. I think some of the original touring cast and stuff, they all got like little pieces in there. Of course, not as big as the originals on Broadway, but the other ones all got kind of bit parts to kind of just still be a part of it. So I think it's kind of cool that they kind of kept that legacy going.
Yeah, one I think was in the boat with Galinda.
You are correct. It was not the author of the book. It was the one that wrote the actual show. So they didn't care about the author of the book, which is good. But yeah, Schwartz was the Emerald City Guard. He's the one who says the wizard will see you now.
Yeah, I was like, I thought it was him because this definitely plays a lot more with the Broadway show than the book.
Right, which I prefer, definitely. And it also looks like Holzman. I think he's the one who wrote the music. Or at least part of it. He was also in it. So they got the writing cast in there of the original, and I think that's cool.
I think one of them was in Galinda's boat when she's arriving at Shiz.
Oh, like what? I could see that.
Yeah. But back to the book, David. Tell us your thoughts.
I think it's awful. I think it is.
Oh wow! Cut straight to the chase.
It's bad. It's not a good book. I mean, intellectually, I do get what he was trying to do. I understand that he was trying to, kind of the way that you mentioned the original Wizard of Oz. Definitely some satirical stuff in there, talking about the current political climate and things. And that's what Maguire did with all of his books in the Oz series. Like, I understand it. I get what he was doing. And he successfully did whatever he wanted to do. It just wasn't good. It was not entertaining. The concept could have been, as we've seen from the movie and the musical, it could have been a lot of fun. It's like he got this really cool, fun concept and made it the worst he could. I don't think a lot of the tangents needed to be there. I don't think any character in the book is likable. All of them. And I understand having flawed characters. You get, like, I get that. Absolutely. But you don't need to make it where you don't care about any character. Any of them could have died, and I would have been like, all right. I mean, it's just nobody was good. Nobody was entertaining. Nobody kept my interest. And it went off on so many weird things. Like in the beginning, the entire puppet show with the clock dragon and everything, like all of that, and the religious stuff about it, and the Munchkin Land politics. Like, I'm sorry, nobody ever watched The Wizard of Oz and was like, but how does their political system work? What are the inner workings of that economy? Come on.
Speak for yourself.
How does the Lollipop Guild pay their dues? What's going on here? No, nobody cared.
Speak for yourself. I want to know.
Hey, George Lucas.
Don't read that book.
George Lucas probably sat down and said, I wonder how their politics work.
Yeah,
we should make a movie out of it.
It's just such.
I was just going to say, fun fact, that was actually his inspiration for Star Wars.
It almost feels like it was just edgier than it needed to be. I mean, it's literally what's been going on now with like stupid Blood and Honey and things like that. It was the case of taking something that is widely regarded as, if not a children's property, a family-friendly property, and being like, but look at the dark side. Look, they all had sex and killed people, and this guy got an STD from a tiger. And I mean,
and he dies from it.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
he dies from the STD.
Sex? But what is going on?
Nick hasn't got to that part yet.
I'm 6 pages in. You make it sound like they took The Wizard of Oz and then like put the ending of the Sausage Party movie and put it all together.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The club scene in this book is like that. Yeah.
Interesting. It's been a while since I've read it, and I will not reread it to refresh because I don't care. But
will you read the sequels?
Fuck no.
No.
What if
I don't give a shit about her random baby. That, like, no, it's so stupid. Also, you're not even clear if Elphaba is like a man or a woman. There's some stuff that's like, oh, she's a hermaphrodite, maybe. Like,
Yeah, Keegan was telling me that she has shark teeth.
yeah, that too. Like, I don't know. All of that, no. But the part that I actually really liked that the musical did, I don't think the book did this the same way. I don't think those characters all become the same characters. Like, I don't believe Bach becomes the Tin Man in the book. I might be wrong, but it definitely at least made it more clear that he became the Tin Man and how that happens in the musical. Whereas the book, a lot of things are just kind of fuzzy. The only one that for sure I remember was the lion, because they still do have the cub being taken away and it eventually becomes the lion, and it's her fault because she showed it sympathy when she was young and didn't let him fight his own battles, and that's why he's a coward. Like, stupid. I don't think that's how psychology works, but whatever. So I don't remember. Maybe Fiyero was still the Scarecrow. Either that or he just died.
He might. Okay, I got to a part in the book where if he doesn't become the Scarecrow, he's dead, because he was like seeing blood being spurted out of him by some like shadow people.
Yeah, I think he might just die.
Yeah, because she's going to see like because he's married while they're having the relations.
Right,
and she goes.
He's married to Glinda.
No, he's married to someone else.
In the musical, it's Glinda.
Yeah, not in the book. It's
okay, right. In the original novel, Elphaba briefly believes this to be the case, but is wrong. Her belief that Fiyero was the Scarecrow in disguise is a lie Elphaba tells herself that she steadily has to come to terms with. So she just like, oh no, he's dead. Everybody dies. Like, there's not any shred of happiness in Wicked the book.
Well, that's because he followed her to the bombing or the assassination attempt she was going to do. And then he goes back to her house and like gets like murdered by shadow people. As like blood's like splurting all over like the cat that she has.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, what is this? It's not even the weirdest scene in there. I'm like, so this is my thoughts on it. Having recently read a very fan fiction book about James Dean, which made sense because it was a what if, but that was very just edgy and raunchy and that kind of stuff for the hell of it. This falls very closely in line with that, but not as bad. But it's
at least
bad.
It makes a little more sense with James Dean. Like, I could believe that he was just a deviant, whatever. That's way more believable than the Munchkins in Wizard of Oz having an orgy.
So, in that one, it has the same issues I think we're talking here, where no one's likable. And I don't know why these fan fiction-y type of books write people that way. Like, to the point where it's like so edgy and people are just so unlikable. And like there's parts in the book where you're like, okay, this isn't bad, and then it gets weird again. Like, it never lets itself like calm down. The writing style as you go on gets better because he spaces himself out more, I guess. But anytime the story kind of slows down, you're like, okay, they're developing something. Okay, weird stuff is going on again.
Exactly.
And that's where it's odd. Like, and obviously there was good stuff in it because they ended up making the play. They ended up doing the movie by taking glimpses here and there.
So yeah, I definitely agree when they say it's inspired by that book. It is not an adaptation of that book.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, as a baby, she bites off like a nanny's finger with her shark teeth, which I mean, that would have been cool.
There's way more animal stuff.
Oh yeah.
The whole situation at the school is very different of why she's there.
The goat dies in the book.
Dr. Dillamon is murdered by Madame Morrible, basically, or her like robot assistant thing.
Oh, there's the nanny. Yeah, Glinda has a nanny who dies.
Yeah, like there's again, it's like there's not any shred of hope or happiness in that entire book.
Yeah,
it's just depressing.
And then, Elphaba's sister, what's her name? Nessaros. Very unlikable again. It's just like, why? Why is everyone so unlikable? Like, Glinda for a little bit becomes the most likable until it like ages up, and then she's just like very unlikable again.
And she's just like a tyrant. Yeah.
Yeah, Fiero might be the most likable, but I'm pretty sure he's dead.
And he's just kind of there. Like, he doesn't get much of a personality in the books except, hey, let's go have sex at this club.
Yeah, and then the whole little book when she's in hiding after, that's all they do. And then he gets himself, whatever.
Yeah, it's just I mean, I'm glad it was written because it did give us a great story in terms of the musical and the movie now. Love that. Kicked off a great thing, but the source material itself, I'm just not a fan. I know there's some people out there that love it, that like the whole series. More power to them. I'm never going to discourage anybody from reading, even if I don't think it's a good book. But me personally, it's not for me. If you're out there thinking if you should try it, give it a shot. I mean, there are some beautiful covers like Keegan was showing with the Barnes & Noble edition. Great deals, especially around the holiday season and after, that, grab it, give it a shot. But just be aware of what you're going into. It is not the movie that you just saw. It is
I was told by a coworker. I was told by a coworker, not trying to cut you off, but I was told by a coworker to not read the book first.
It'll make you not want to see the movie.
Yeah, I mean, I was told to watch the movie and then read the book. So I bought the book after seeing the movie. So I do still plan on reading it, even though you're giving some heavy spoilers.
Now, I will say one advantage of reading the book before I even saw the musical, there are very few, but there are a couple of things that kind of allude to the book that they don't straight up say that you'll understand because you read the book. For example, the biggest one, the clock dragon is a huge thing in the book. They talk about it all the time. It's kind of a prophecy / religious type thing almost. If you see the musical, even in the touring edition, the stage is a giant clockwork. There's a giant dragon at the top and then clock gears and things. All of this is happening inside the clock. This is like showing the story, be it a prophecy or telling of what has occurred, will occur, whatever. But all of it technically is taking place in the clock dragon. But if you haven't read the book or know about that, it is never mentioned. They never say a word about it. It's just a cool looking stage. You're like, why is there a dragon? I don't know. Let's go with it. Never brought up. And similarly in the movie, at the very beginning when they're doing No One Mourns the Wicked, right after that, Glinda does mention something like, as told by the clock dragon at da-da-da-da-da. And that's about the only reference you get from that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's interesting, and it's an interesting take on the story that you get from other things. I just don't want anybody to judge one based on the other and don't think they're the same thing. Mainly people that are thinking about buying a book for their kids don't maybe do this one unless they're at least high school age, I would say. I mean,
buy a coloring book for your kids.
Yeah, something like that. Or read it first maybe and see if your kid's the type that can handle it. Because, I mean, some can. If you talk to them about it, it could be fine. But just, I'm never going to be one for censorship. I don't think that's right, especially with books. So definitely it deserves to be out there. Just know what you're getting into if you're giving it to a minor.
I mean, I'm with you there on the censorship thing. I've talked to Keegan about this when we used to work together, but I still am baffled that society reacted the way it did to Grand Theft Auto back in the day. Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, when all the parents were getting all mad that kids.
You bought it for the kid. What did you?
It's like you were exactly. You bought the freaking game for the kids. It was rated M for mature. There's a legal system there. It means you have to be 17 in order to even.
I mean, there's only so many warnings you can put on something. If a parent's not going to pay attention to what they're doing for their kids, that's not on them.
No, that is 100% on them. It's 100% on the parent.
No, I'm saying it's not on the people who make it.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I agree.
That's like saying you sent your kid to an R-rated movie, you didn't know the rating. Like, why didn't you check? Like, come on.
Uh-huh.
You got to do a little of the legwork.
Yeah, all the people a few years ago who got all mad about Deadpool being a rated R super. It's like, this is supposed to be a superhero movie for kids. It's like, no, it's rated R for adults.
That means explicitly not for kids. That's literally what that means.
If you guys are going to be that dumb and not check the rating or not do any research, then it's on you.
Yeah, I think too many people, too many parents are going to be like, "Oh, my kid's really into this Wizard of Oz thing. Of course they can have that. It's the Wizard of Oz." This is not the Wizard of Oz. It
Nope.
is
It's wicked.
not.
It's
Yeah,
wicked.
it's
not
and
even wicked.
I get that the musical, like the movie now has made it like it's a cool like teenage thing too. Like, yeah, the book is not the same. It's got the same name and they're cross advertising, but do a little digging yourself and see that it's very different. Just like I feel like it did a better job of being closer to the book, of course, but there's a whole orgy scene with the kids in the sewers that was wisely left out of the movie.
Keegan was
I'm
telling me
okay
about
with
that. I had no idea.
Yeah, and it goes on for a while.
That's how they get out of the sewers.
Yeah, there's a lot in there that I understand why it was not in there, but luckily with that, nobody's giving their kid, hopefully, it and being like, have fun, Timmy. But still,
Here's your 1,000-page book. Go have fun.
It's important to, I mean, by the time he gets to that, maybe he will be old enough. Who knows? But I just think it pays to be at least a decent parent. Look into what you're getting your kids. That's all I'm saying. Otherwise, be prepared for some really awkward conversations about tiger STDs.
Either be a good parent and do some research, or be a good parent and talk to your kids about it.
Yeah.
You know, like I remember, like, or you could do both. That's always an option. But like I remember when I was 12, my parents gifted me Grand Theft Auto Vice City for the PlayStation 2. I did not personally care for the game series at the time, so I didn't really get into it. But that's a very mature game to give a 12-year-old. Now, I played it. I understood what was happening in it. My parents sat down and talked to me about it. Like, hey, listen, this stuff is video game. This is not real. Do not replicate this stuff in real life.
100%. And I think that would solve so many problems.
Like it's okay for you to do it in the game. Just make sure it stays in the game.
Like, you need to know that this is a fantasy, not reality. That this is very different than how the world really works, and there's consequences for this kind of thing in the real world. I totally agree. I think that things like that can be handled by good parenting. Talk to your kids, let them know. I mean, to be fair, there's nothing like outrageously explicit in Wicked. Like, if I had a kid that was like
bestiality,
but it's not like super like detailed the way that some of these spicier books out there are these days that around that age group is still picking up. So I can't even harp on that too much. If I had a kid around that like 12 or 13 age that wanted to read Wicked, I'd be more upset that they had bad taste in literature than I would about the sexual content.
I'm more upset with their bad taste in literature.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I won't discourage anyone from reading it. Is it the worst thing I've ever picked up and read? No. Is it better than mediocre again? Probably no. There are some bright spots, like I've previously said, but I think you'll see them in the movie. He
does build out an interesting world. I will say that about the book over the musical. He goes to a lot more destinations in Oz, in building up the different kingdoms and stuff that are just kind of mentioned. Like the whole kingdom where Fiero's from, Winky Country and stuff. That's in the original Oz books. We don't really get a lot from it. I don't know if we're going to go there in the second movie. I assume we will, but they don't really do anything with that in the musical as much because, of course, with the stage, there's only so many destinations you're going to be able to do. But they do get a lot more in depth with stuff like that in the book. He builds, definitely a bigger picture of things. If you're into the economic system, into the government, if you think the Senate talks in the Star Wars prequels were the height of entertainment, this book is for you. You're going to love it. If you were like, wait, why can't I have an hour about the Galactic Trade Federation? Have I got a story to tell you? Because Keegan, Wicked is right up your alley.
Keegan, does your copy of Wicked include a map?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just going to say, we have a map. And
that map is the curtain for the musical. Before the play starts, when you walk in, that map is there underneath the dragon and everything that is moved once it starts. But they took a lot of it and really boiled it down for the musical, which makes sense because they needed to make it simpler to be a stage production. So totally understand that. There's definitely some key points, like there's still the activism with the animals and everything happening. Totally understandable. Elphaba is still trying to do what is objectively the right thing, following her own morals, whereas Glinda is on another path, you know, kind of intersecting back and forth. Like, it's not the worst book ever, but I would never read it again. I can't with a good conscience recommend you read it, but it's a book. It's there.
I'm still laughing over if my kid was like, I want to read Rickett, I'd be more disappointed in their horrible taste in literature. That is such a cold line.
It's so odd that it's just like I want to read it because it's so odd, and then at the same time I don't want to read it because it's so odd. Because I'm just like, why? Why is it so odd? Like,
and the thing is, especially now that we've seen the musical and the movie, it could be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
It has so much potential to be such an interesting and fascinating world. There's so much to play with. You know, taking Frank L. Baum's, you know, his classic world, there's so much to expand upon. And I like the concept of like, oh, you didn't have the whole story. There was another side to this coin. Like, I love that. That's interesting. You know, that's a good hook. You got me in. But then he just took it to the most depressing places possible. And I think he forgot that a book is supposed to be at least a little entertaining. You know, there's got to be some fun in there. And for some people, this is what they like. But for me personally, I like my stories with a little more hope, a little more, you know, uplifting at parts, and with some characters that I can really get behind and root for. Whereas in this one, I just kind of rooted for some of them to be dead or to end it all.
Jesus.
Yeah, I will say the characters in the movie version much more likable. Again, kind of going back to that other one I read, Rebel, it's just like when you take a property that's in the public zeitgeist that everyone knows, like, it's just weird to make certain. And this is, I never saw the Blood and Honeys because they look dumb. And I'm like, why? Now they're making a Popeye slasher. It's in the same universe with the Pinocchio.
It's like the thing. They even did that Steamboat Willie one.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think we need it for all these characters. Just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should.
Yeah.
It's like you're speaking to Sony when it comes to making Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man right there.
Thank God they've given that up.
David, did you read the news today?
That they're considering selling it?
No, that they're going to reboot it now.
No, they're not.
They're going to recast, and they're going to get a new Spider-Man.
Yep, they're going to reboot it.
I don't think it's going to happen. I think there's a lot out there. What I heard, the heaviest rumor is that they're seriously considering just selling it straight up to Marvel and being done.
Well, see, Marvel only has 2 more movies with Holland. They just have the 2 big ones. And then he can go back, but it sounds like they just want a new Peter Parker. They're already out there looking for their next Spider-Man.
Who, Sony is?
Who is? Sony? Yeah, Sony is. I don't think Marvel is.
I don't think it's going to happen because I think they've got to know that if they try to do that, nobody's going to be interested.
It depends if they have the only rights to Spider-Man.
What I would do, okay, the smartest thing for Sony to do, and this is way off of Wicked, but I will say this real quick. If Sony wanted to get into the live-action Spider-Man game, the smartest thing they could do would be have the next Spider-Verse movie end with that Miles becoming live-action Miles Morales and doing the Miles Morales movies as a Sony product and keeping him from Marvel and letting them have all of the Miles stuff and be his own Spider-Man, live-action, everything, because people would love it. It would be different enough that it's not just doing Spider-Man again, but it's a character that people know and love and would go see.
I just realized. Sorry, I was looking for a book because David, I have a book recommendation for you. And second, I just realized I also have my own copy of Wizard of Oz.
Nice, that's beautiful looking. I like that kind of like
Wizard
paint.
of Oz.
Yeah, that's cool.
I got it from Second and Charles. That was the day I found out that there was multiple books in the series. But David, a book for you, since you said you like books that have like happier kind of tones. Matt Haig's
The Midnight Library. Okay.
The Midnight Library.
Let me get that down.
One of my favorites, really. I read it a couple of years ago because a friend recommended it to me, and yeah, good book, really good story.
See, at some point, maybe next year we'll do a book club.
Sweet. I got it right here. I will 100% read that. Thank you, sir.
You're very welcome.
See, that could be our first book for our 2025 new book club that we're going to start.
Hey,
I won't be able to join you all those, but I will try. I'll definitely join you for Midnight
reading
Library.
and writing, I'm always down for more book stuff.
Right. Yeah, no,
I've been trying to get more into books. So
yeah, I've been on a good pace of reading like one a week. With Wicked, I'll probably finish at a week and a half. The Oswald one that was 800.
It takes a bit to get through.
Yeah,
it's Oswald not that it's long; it's just dense.
Yeah, that's how the Oswald one was. It's 800 pages, but it's also probably double the amount of words than is in Wicked.
Is it about his life?
Yeah, and it's one of those detailed books where the author so Marina knew this guy like in passing, so we're gonna learn his entire life.
So did you finish that book? Is it done?
I'm 600 pages through, but then I switched to Wicked since I knew we were gonna
once you're done with that, tell me if they said that Oswald was the fall guy or if he actually did it.
I'll tell you right now, the KGB is thinks he's useless because there's the whole first act is him in Russia, and the KGB and all the Russian people think he's the biggest idiot.
The hardest book for me to get through, reading wise, was Picture of Dorian Gray.
Yeah, especially because you probably knew the story going into it, I assume, right?
Nope. I mean, kind of. So
that's kind of the twist.
I'm not a huge reader by any means at all, and that was a book that we got assigned in school. I only read the cliff notes of certain chapters.
I mean, I will say the Picture of Dorian Gray. That's one you could get through with just the cliff notes.
That is true, but I actually took the time after that language arts class was over during that summer to actually read the book.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, I actually enjoyed it.
Yeah.
If my English teacher at the time is now watching this or sees this and hears about it, I do apologize.
I mean, another English book that I think is a little difficult to get through, but it's worth it, is Canterbury Tales. Going through all the different stories they tell and stuff like that. It's really good if you can handle the kind of old English style and everything.
I have not read that one yet.
Did you guys get through Moby Dick?
No, but
I have read Moby Dick in it.
Somebody that we used to work that used to work at MMI with me. I think he left before you got hired on. His name was Miller. He read through the book and he was telling me about it when he was reading it and how much of a trog it was to get through.
Yeah, no, I remember when I bought it, some cashier, she was like, I remember when I tried to read that, I didn't get very far. And I was just like, oh.
I will say, Moby Dick is extremely well written. From a technical standpoint, it's written very well. It's just way longer than it ever needed to be.
Yeah. See, the hardest book I've had to force myself to get through was that Cracking the Brushy Bill Imposter hoax of Billy the Kid. It's 800 pages and it could have been 200. It took me 2 months to read that book because it was just so much and it was over and over and over. And I was just like, oh my God. So much. And there's some good information there, but I can't recommend it because it's so hard to read. And for me,
it's just some books are just dense, not even necessarily long, because some books can be 800 pages and I fly through it because it's just so interesting that I want to keep going.
Yeah.
But some of them, it's just it is a slog to get through. I want to know what happens, but God, just get there.
Just get it over with. All right. Well, now that we've beaten books to death until our new book club that we're going to start in January, thanks to Nick's recommendation. I like that though. We should do that. One book a month. We'll try to read that. We'll try
I will try to read a book a month. I'm not a very big reader, but I will try.
Yeah, we'll try not to read anything gigantic. So no
no War and Peace, huh?
Yeah. No Lord of the Rings. I guess you could break that up into 3 though.
Hey, if we did anything from Tolkien, I have read The Hobbit.
And I think it's awesome. Hobbit's great, but I will say, huge fan of the Lord of the Rings movies. Not as big a fan of the book series.
Really?
I mean, still great for what it is. It definitely became what we consider the modern fantasy book. He started all those stereotypes pretty much of what we think of now. But Tolkien was a linguist, and it very much shows that that's what he was in love with. So much of what he, all the songs, the poetry parts, the different like he was a very fluid author. He liked expounding on things. Kind of reminds me of the Bible in some ways, where it just goes out like, oh, the son of so and so who begat this, and it's like, all right, man, like we could shorten this paragraph to a sentence.
I read something on Quora about Tolkien, and it was talking about the difference between Lord of the Rings and the Chronicles of Narnia, because somebody asked the question of why the Chronicles of Narnia never became as big, like especially in the movies, like since the movies were coming out around the same time, why the Chronicles of Narnia didn't become as big as Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And it's for two reasons. One, the Chronicles of Narnia book series isn't like one continuous story. It's
right. It's not about the kids all the way through. It's more about the land.
Yeah, it's more. Yeah, it's even then it's just more like episodic. More.
I feel like Aslan's the most reoccurring character, and even then he's not there that much.
Mm-hmm. But versus like Tolkien, what he did when he was writing is he came up with all of the backstory before. He came up with all the backstory
the whole
before even writing one story. Versus, because the other guy, C.S. Lewis didn't do that at all.
C.S. Lewis basically wrote a religious parable bedtime story, and Tolkien wrote a epic fake English history.
Yeah. That's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. And I think they're both great. They're definitely literature, giants in their own ways. Personally, I am a little more fan of like Lord of the Rings style, but I think there's a lot to be said about Chronicles of Narnia, and I'm excited to see the new Netflix series when it comes out. I think, if they do it well, it could be huge.
Wicked, the movie we've all seen, so at least we can all talk about. It'd be terrible of us to do a deep dive, and none of us have seen it. But David, do you want to kick us off and kind of run us through maybe the first, 10% of the movie, maybe?
Yeah. So, again, they were very true to the musical. They open up with the opening number being right after the Wicked Witch of the West has been killed. So, matching this up with the Wizard of Oz, this would be right after, I believe, Dorothy has defeated her. So Dorothy has beat her, and she's headed back to the wizard, to the Emerald City, to say she killed her. The news has gotten out, and now the citizens of Oz are celebrating that this great evil is gone. So they're all happy. Glinda's going around just kind of like confirming, yep, she's gone. And somebody's like, hey, hold up. I heard a rumor, that you were friends with her. Like, what's that about? And she's like, well, I knew her. And they're like, what? Tell us about that. So then the movie is basically Glinda telling us the story of her and Elphaba, who is the Wicked Witch. We get to hear about Elphaba being born, and it turns out that she's green due to her mother had an affair with a guy who brought along this green elixir, which was kind of felt a little date rapey, to be honest, but it seemed like the woman was into it, so whatever. But basically they got high/drunk off this special green elixir, and it's kind of alluded that that's her real dad. And Elphaba comes out, she's green, everybody's freaked out, she has a hard childhood. Skips ahead, and basically her and Glinda end up at the same school together through a series of events, because it turns out that Elphaba has an affinity towards being able to use magic, which may or may not be the same thing that made her green, but she kind of finds some acceptance for the first time in her life at this school, where they're saying that her differences actually make her special in a way that she could be good enough to go and meet the wizard to have her heart's desire granted. That's about 10%.
I was gonna say, can I butt in here now?
Yeah.
Yeah, David's right. That is like the first 10% of the movie. It is a good synopsis. That is, I will say one thing as I'm sitting there, because again, I like to watch these. I like to watch the Everything Wrong With channel, the Cinema Sins channel, and I'm sitting there watching the movie, and I'm like, okay, so we have talking animals, but one person's green, and we all lose our shit. Like that's not a thing. We can have a talking bear and a talking dog, a talking lion, everything in the world can talk, but one person's green and nobody can accept it.
Like, that's the weirdest thing you've seen today? Really?
Yeah, exactly. It's like it's just a person who has a different color skin. Like it's fine. And then I was like, oh, this is just racism, like all over again.
I mean, the animal portion, I think, is the allegory there, yeah.
To be fair, there was not a lot of black people at Shiz.
Nope.
Was a
Just
lot of
saying.
animals.
I did enjoy seeing Bowen Yang from SNL as one of the
The sassy
as one of,
friends.
yeah, as one of Galinda's sassy friends.
So is the elixir part in the stage play, David?
Yep, it's literally a lyric. Have another drink of green elixir and follow me down.
Because I was going to say in the book, it's more like her mom is always drinking the elixir and
Yeah.
then just wants, and she's eating like flowers or something.
Yeah,
get her high.
in this, it's definitely shown that it's because of the man.
Yeah, which we'll find
And
out who he is.
y'all already know about him, right?
The man that she was drinking with?
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I just assumed he was some random guy.
Okay, we won't spoil it.
It's spoilers, so I won't.
No, by all means, spoil it, because you've already spoiled a lot of things tonight for me. I'm not going to care about anything else.
All right, spoilers, so jump ahead about a minute or two if you don't want to hear this. The wizard is her dad.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that's him, and that's why they kind of shadow his face in that scene. You can still kind of tell it's him singing if you're looking for it, that it's Jeff Goldblum, but that's going to be like the twist, I guess, they're going to reveal in the second part, that the wizard has just gotten there from Kansas, basically, is just kind of in his first days around Oz, and the green elixir stuff or whatever is from him. He's her father. And it adds a whole nother layer to their, like, rivalry.
So it quite literally makes the Wizard of Oz in the Star Wars. Okay.
Kind of.
At one point, you do see an elixir bottle, though, in what's it called?
He mentions it in the lyrics, and he has it in his hand, like when they're dancing and stuff. Like, but it's not.
But later in when they're in his room, there's like a leftover elixir bottle.
Yep. And again, they don't like showcase it, but it's definitely there. Yeah.
There's a lot of good like little Easter eggs throughout. I will say,
which I like that they don't just like spoon feed it to you. That they're like, yeah, you can catch it.
Yeah, like that part where Dorothy's a dragon. I was so excited to read that.
A lot of people don't know this. The sequel to Wizard of Oz is Never Ending Story. She is. That's Dorothy.
Falcor!
She's white because she was an old woman at this point, so she's old woman dragon, and yeah, it's crazy.
And then little known fact about that too. The sequel to Never Ending Story is Spirited Away from Studio Ghibli.
Same dragon.
Same dragon.
If you guys didn't know, she's not a dragon. Or is she? Stay tuned, part 2.
Stay tuned, part 2. And then watch like we open up part 2. Like, by the way, part 2 we had a cliffhanger.
We had a little cliffhanger, and
the answer is no.
Or the answer is yes. You don't know what happens in the book yet, Nick.
Now I have to say,
you're seriously gonna try to ride this, aren't you?
I don't think that they would ever do it. But how funny would it be if they were like, listen, guys, we're going to make the most perfect adaptation of part 1, and then we're just going balls to the wall on part 2. It is going to be nothing like anything they've ever seen. Elphaba's going to grow some more heads. Glinda is actually a robot. Like, they just go out of nowhere because everybody's already seen part 1. And they're like, yeah, part 2, let's go. They sell the tickets, and everybody's like, what just happened?
Part two ends with the sex scene, like a giant orgy.
Yeah, part 2 is just the sex scenes from the book. That's it.
I mean, there's a movie's worth of those type of scenes in the book, so.
And every few minutes in, like in between the thrusting, one of the characters turns and says, "You paid to see this," and then just keeps going at it.
I would love that, but only if it was specifically Jeff Goldblum being like, "Listen, you guys paid to see this."
That kind of makes you part of this.
All right, so back to Easter eggs. Early on you see obviously the 4 of them walking back on the yellow brick road down.
I do also like that the opening Wicked Part 1 is the same font that was in the original the Wizard of Oz. And I really like that when you're seeing the opening number in Munchkinland, it is very much just a slightly more realistic version of that same set of where Dorothy landed. Like, it looks like the exact same place. You can tell that it's the same Munchkinland where the house landed and Dorothy began her trip on the Yellow Brick Road. So that I thought was very cool.
Yep.
Well, also how it opens with the hat on the floor and the puddle with kind of the clock behind it is how the stage show used to open. I know it doesn't anymore.
It still opens with the clocks and everything and the like big arch. It's like the flying monkeys come out and they kind of climb around and lift up.
But they don't have the big hat. I know it used to start with like a giant hat. Yeah.
So they still do the giant hat on Broadway.
Oh, you gotta go.
It's a Broadway specific prop. If you see it on one of the touring ones or something like that, it doesn't open with the big hat. There's a couple of things that are different just because the set pieces are so massive to move around. It's the same thing with like Beetlejuice. They change it. Like, instead of falling through the floors when the Maitlands die, they just get electrocuted. Like, it just makes it easier.
Yeah. Easier to haul around to different cities.
Yeah, and I mean, I get it.
Well,
even though Hamilton moves around with a stage that literally rotates the whole time, so
maybe just step up your game. Maybe just step up the game there, Wicked.
Yeah, maybe take some tips from the founding fathers. I don't know.
Also, kind of a fun little Easter egg is like, so when Glinda's trying to get the bubble to come back, she has to like stand in a certain spot. She keeps like trying to find the button to make the bubble like pop open, like pop over.
Yes, because Glinda doesn't actually have any magic.
Yeah,
is what. See, in the stage one, they never really made that super clear or not. It's kind of ambiguous. Like, she can kind of do like light magic. In the movie, it seems like they're kind of going the route of she does not have any magical ability at all. And relies on like mechanical things and tricks and stuff, as opposed to actually, I mean, kind of like the wizard in a way.
I was literally just about to say that. It is about the wizard.
And because she's kind of on their side-ish, I could see that that's how they help her out to build her up as like the good witch. But from what I can see, her and Madame Morrible are the only ones that really have any magical ability.
Yeah, at least that we've seen in part 1.
Right.
We'll see where part 2 takes us, but
I don't remember in the book. Does Glinda have any magic?
I don't know if it's been put out. I know she like studied sorcery, as did
like a couple. It's like a whole class, right?
Yeah. And like Elphaba went for like natural sciences because she was trying to like help with the animal with the A versus or capital A versus
right. And her sister wanted to be able to walk and things like that.
Which they did give her sister the striped socks in this one, which is.
And you saw the shoes a couple times.
You did see the shoes. They're not red because obviously they're not red in the book. And I think it's a copyright issue, or else I think more of the movies and stuff would have used red shoes.
Well, also the original Wizard of Oz, they're silver.
Is silver, yeah.
The only reason they turned red is to show off the Technicolor abilities of that movie to make them ruby red. But you are right. It is copyrighted specifically the ruby red slippers that are very much for MGM in those movies. Like, yeah.
And I think that's why at one part when what song are they doing when they're in the room and she's trying to make her look beautiful?
Popular,
yeah. And so she brings out the red slippers and clinks them together like 3 times as
Yeah.
like a little nod, you know.
There's definitely a lot of homages to the original, which I think was great, especially for people that don't know anything about Wicked till they see this. It's enough to kind of give them that comfort of, oh, this is the same world. Okay.
Yeah. Well, and when we do see the silver slippers, one detail they added was on the heels to make them look like tornadoes. And they also
Yeah.
did that in the library where they have everything kind of spiraling like a tornado would.
Now, I want to say I do believe the slippers are going to let Nessa walk.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think that's why she has them. Like, I think Elphaba enchants them later on that she doesn't have to stay in the wheelchair.
Okay.
Yeah. And that's why they're like magic slippers or something. And I don't remember the reasoning of why she wants them back. I don't know if it's just that it's a family heirloom because they're supposed to be her mother's slippers.
Yeah.
And it was like passed down. Yeah, I don't remember. Also, am I wrong? Wasn't Nessa more disabled in the book?
I
want to
she
say like
can-
she didn't have arms or something.
Yeah, some with
It was
her
something like
arms
way
was
more
just
intense than
mentioned.
just in a wheelchair.
Yeah, so she couldn't really walk. Something was weird with her legs.
I knew that was part of it, but
But then, yeah, in the one that I just got to, I thought they said something was wrong with her arm.
Yeah,
She's also really unlikable. She said she wants to like spit on her sister and like kill her.
Oh, she like hates Elphaba.
Yeah. And but also she doesn't come in till like the next year. Where in the movie they arrive and it's actually her going to school and Elphaba's just kind of there. In the book,
Right.
It's Elphaba going to school, and then when Glinda's nanny like dies after the go, then okay, so because there's the whole part in the book too where they're like separated into dormitories, but because Glinda's nanny like stepped on a nail, she was gonna get put in with like 15 other girls, and so that's how they get put together, kind of deal.
Right. Because in the book, it's kind of written as like they're kind of sending Elphaba away so that he doesn't have to deal with her. Like, go to school, get away from. Yeah, I don't want you here for my political career.
In the movie, I think everyone just comes off more likable.
Yep. Okay. I just read it. She's born with a deformity, though her deformity was that she's born with no arms. And they changed that to her just being in a wheelchair for the musical and the movie because that's way easier to do on stage, of course. But she's even in the musical, they keep this part that she's really the one that becomes a wicked witch because she like takes over for her father as like the political ruler of Munchkinland, whatever, and she's like cruel.
Which I guess it's easy to do with her because in the original movie, you see her feet for like 12 seconds. So no one has like an attachment to her, you know?
Yeah, she was still an open, yeah. And her being how she is makes it that much easier for people to hate Elphaba because they're sisters and just be like, oh, she's the Wicked Witch of the West, and now you're the Wicked Witch of the East.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Yeah, and so obviously they get to the school and one of the teachers goes to wheel away her, and Elphaba is like, no, she can do it herself. And that's when we get magic from her, at least in a big setting in public. Because they did it like at the birth scene and everything like that.
I want to say Nessa has magical abilities as well. I don't think it's as much as Elphaba, but she, at least in the book, she does have magic.
Yeah.
So I think the other people are like her and Glinda, I think are lesser and they can do like slighter things. Because I know she uses that as part of her like ruling of Munchkinland and becomes like cruel with it the way she uses sorcery. So I don't know. They didn't make it very clear the magic system. But what I want to bring up about this early part of the movie, why would they send poor Dorothy on that road when they have a train system?
And like a boat system.
How did Glinda see this little girl and like, bitch, you gonna walk? When it's like, you could have got on a train and be there in like 40 minutes.
Can we can somebody in Hollywood please make that happen? Like, let's do a remake of Wizard of Oz after the events of Wicked, and just have Ariana Grande's Glinda be like, "Bitch, you walking?"
Right? Like, now I did see something that somebody brought that up. It was when Dorothy arrives in the original movie, and they're like, are you a good witch or a bad witch or whatever? And because she asked Glinda if she was a witch, and she just mentioned something. She's like, well, bad witches are ugly. And it's like, you asked if I was a bad witch. The fuck you trying to say? Like, and they were like, that's why she didn't tell her about the train.
Yeah, no.
Why'd this bitch walk?
I think there's, so obviously at the beginning too, you see that scene with them walking.
Yeah.
To, and it's like, wow, that's really far away. Like, I know it was a few days and like,
well, when you see him at the beginning,
field.
that's after they've killed the witch.
Yeah, yeah.
So that would be them, yeah. So who knows how far she had to go in the beginning? Probably even further.
Yeah.
Like to get to the Emerald City to begin with.
Yeah.
Probably.
No, it was. Yeah, that's something I've seen people bring up is like, man, we've never seen her walk to the city after they killed her. Like, they just had to like.
There was a whole other movie that could have been done.
Don't give them ideas, David. We know Sony might be listening. They might make that series. We know what they were going to do with.
No, Sony. Sony, put the computer down now and walk away.
Hey, they were going to make a whole Aunt May like TV series. Anyways, David, why don't you? We've gone through the first 10. Unless you have more you want to add, or Nick, let's go through the next like 10-20%.
Nick can take it.
All right,
okay.
Nick.
So they're at school now.
So then, the next part of the movie is them being at school. You get to see Glinda being kind of a jerk, kind of standoffish. Even though
kind of a bitch.
Go bitch. She wants to be nice at the beginning because Elphaba actually has magic and just being taught sorcery, and she wants to be on the in with all of that because she wants to be a sorceress herself, but she doesn't have any magic, as we see. And then it's not until they have a whole musical number about them hating each other, and then it's not until the scene where Fiero ends up liking Elphaba kind of, and where they go to the club to dance, where the two characters actually connect. And their friendship actually blossoms into a decent friendship.
And I would say their friendship in the movie feels more earned than the book, because it's really not a friendship in the book, especially at school. But yeah, there's good contrast, especially with like the coloring of the scenes where like she's always in pink, Elphaba's always in like darker colors,
black and green.
And
which
then
I will say, if you would just tell me like before Wicked, if like not keeping Wicked in mind, green, black, and pink, not colors I would think would mix well at all. But they pulled it off.
They pulled it off. I will say in the musical, the whole scene where Elphaba's like dancing by herself kind of thing, and they kind of come together, that is played way more as a comedy kind of thing, as opposed to the like heartbreaking that they do it in the movie.
Yeah,
it was very heartbreaking in the movie. I felt really bad for Elphaba in the movie. Yeah.
And it goes on just long enough that it's like cringe how much it kind of hurts. You're like, oh God, no, they don't rush through it.
It definitely leaned into that. I was like, is this something we need to be sad about now, or do I want to walk away?
Yeah, like, oh, this keeps going. Somebody's do something. Like, yeah.
Yeah, like the part where Glinda's like, she just doesn't care. Like, it hits different, because of how they draw out that scene.
And then especially when he's like, she cares, but, it's because she cares that she's doing this.
Yeah. Well, and then when she joins, the colors kind of like blend in a way as well. So,
the cinematography was great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and the music. How heavily inspired from Harry Potter was the school, do you think?
I don't think too much. I mean, maybe a little bit just in like wizarding school, what you kind of think, but it just seemed kind of like it fit in Oz. You know, it was kind of just an ornate, older cathedral type.
It felt more like a university, like a real life university,
yeah, like Harvard or something.
Yeah, definitely felt more like a real life university versus like
it felt like it felt like a real like Ivy League school with a little bit of Ozian flair. Especially
it felt like more like Pitch Perfect than than Harry Potter.
Especially when she does the magic and it breaks that stone picture of the wizard and there's the animals underneath. You can tell it's been there for longer and used more for like animals to learn and things like that.
Yeah. Well, don't those animals kind of line up with the houses of Harry Potter?
Quit connecting dots that aren't there, Keegan.
No, this is a Harry Potter origin story, okay?
No.
This is how the HBO Max series is going to kick off.
None of that would make sense.
Nope.
Well, we haven't seen the HBO Max series yet.
Shut up. Anyway, what's next? What else do you want me to describe?
Well, I mean, obviously they're going to the class, and Dillamon, right, is the goat.
And that's to learn that there's like strife between people that think animals shouldn't be treated like people, which very clearly almost kind of like what they did with X-Men, where it was like kind of an allegory for being gay or something like that, you know, acceptance of somebody because they're different. So kind of a civil rights movement with animals there. But what's funny is they did have rights. They were totally fine. And now it was about taking that away.
Yeah, to the point that they were like, you know, Elphaba's getting like these visions of him being like locked up. And she does stumble across like a meeting he's having with some of the other animal professors.
Yeah, it's like the underground animal network.
Yeah. And she obviously feels very like a kindred spirit to him. And he's again different than in the book where
I will say he lives up to what Nick was saying earlier, where it's like you have all this shit in this world and you're worried about somebody being green. Yep. The talking goat, no issues that she was green. He was cool with it.
No. The animals are the only ones that accepted her from the get-go. So,
which is fair because I mean she was basically raised by her nanny that was the bear. So we saw that she had that close animal connection. So I think that that's really where it comes from, is she grew up with family basically being animals. So of course she continues how she feels about that now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and so we kind of get some scenes with them and her bond growing.
I kind of don't get why. I feel like it's never fully explained.
The bond between her and the professor?
No. I don't get why the wizard cared if animals had rights or not.
Yeah, I didn't even get that from the book.
He's still in charge. He's still the wizard. Why do you care if that bear's talking or not?
It makes no sense.
There's no reason.
No sense.
Like I get that. Like no, there's no point. I mean, his guards are animals. What?
That is true. No, so the way I thought about it was kind of like the wizard himself is an outsider, and he just happens to have this amazing technology that makes him frightening enough to not oppose him. But he comes from he comes from our world where animals don't speak, and that's what he's trying to impose.
Like, I don't know about you guys. If I ended up in a world where animals were talking, I'd be like, fuck yeah, this is awesome. Yeah. Like I would have no problem if a dog could walk up and have a conversation with me. Let's do it. Whatever.
I'd rather that.
I draw the line at animal orgies.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe he went to the Philosophers Club, David, and
he has a tiger STD.
He was like,
it all can make sense now.
I get it. He
was like, get it out. He saw it. And he's like, no more of this stuff.
No, I'd rather go to a world where animals talk. That way, like, I could ask for me, like, if my cat's sick, I could just be like, hey, you know, what's wrong? And the cat be like, I'm not feeling the best. Like, maybe try to feed me something different. Like, okay, got it. Versus like, my cat peed on something. Maybe it's not feeling well.
Yeah, or I could be like, look, I know you're sad. I'm leaving. I'm going to work. I will be back. I promise. I'm gonna be back. And they're like, oh,
it's like, okay. You're never back. You always say that. You never come back.
You're gone forever.
Yeah. So in the movie, he just gets escorted out by the police versus murdered, he ends up maybe in a cage at some point. We'll find out in part 2. And then he's replaced by a human professor who shows us the cowardly lion, obviously.
And says animals are bad and should be in cages.
Yeah. And then this makes her upset. And the whole time we're getting like little Easter eggs that his favorite flowers were poppies.
Yeah, we do see the poppies show up a lot. Not his, it's like hers.
Well, he says it's his favorite
flower. Or that
flower.
she at least has an affinity towards it, yeah.
Yeah, she brings it in for him because he likes it. And then...
because she literally does the same poppy sleeping spell that happens in Wizard of Oz to the
except for one.
Right, Fiyero.
If you watch Wizard of Oz, there's one that doesn't get affected by it there either.
Because he doesn't have a brain.
Or he's dead. He's a ghost.
The Scarecrow was a ghost the whole time. Zach Baggins shows up.
It would be pretty easy to be dead without a brain.
But yeah, then they go release, because everyone falls asleep, including Glinda, who has changed her name. Or she hasn't changed her name yet.
She hasn't changed her name yet.
No,
Glinda. Yeah, so Glinda. But as they're riding, we get a homage to the bike with Toto, where Toto like peeks out and jumps. Yeah, because again, in the original Wizard of Oz, it's all in her head. Right? In the movie, at least. In the 1939 movie, right?
What?
All that movie is in her head.
It's a dream, yeah.
Yeah,
it's all a dream, yeah.
In the book, it's real. In the movie, it was a dream.
Yeah. But it's a nice little homage to that, because obviously it's the same actress who plays both parts in the 1939 movie.
Everybody she kind of meets in the real world is then in Oz as somebody else.
Yeah. But that was kind of neat. And then they kind of have like their kind of soul moment, which she was the first person to like come across him when he's walking, talking to his horse or whatever, walking through the forest.
Right. And he immediately is someone who doesn't seem to care that she's green.
Yeah. And that kind of throws her off because she's like, well, why are you trying to like make fun of me?
Again, like Nick said, it's like, hey, I've seen a lot of weird shit in this world. The fact that you're green's not the weirdest thing today.
It's so bizarre.
I'm literally having a conversation with the horse I'm riding. You're good, green girl.
It's so off-putting to me. It was one thing I could not take my mind off.
Like, I could see if they've never seen anybody green being like, oh, that's unusual, but that's about it. They're like, oh, cool. They're
like, not so where it stops the whole
weird.
class.
Not like, oh,
like, Glinda's like, whoo.
Yeah, more like, oh, wow. All right. I guess that's what's going on.
They're sitting there like, yo, have you read the book? I got an STD from a tiger, but you're green. That shit's weird.
But that's what we're going to harp on. Okay.
Yeah, even in the book, they have a weird thing with her being green.
I know. At least in the book, it's also like the shark teeth, the water thing, because it always says because of the water, she's always like really tightly like clothed. Remember, like she's definitely more peculiar in the book.
Well, I also think it has something to do with the clock, where it kind of warned of a green baby or something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of
she was going to be the spawn.
Prophecies and So there's a lot more reasons for people to be like wary in that. In the book, I mean, in the movie and show, she's just
mentioned.
Oh, she's just green.
Mentioned. Yeah, it's just that she's green. None of that, none of the prophecies or anything is mentioned at all in the movie.
No, and it shouldn't be because it's stupid.
Yeah, we don't need that scene. Please, part 2, whatever you do not put that scene.
It opens with a 20-minute puppet show.
I mean, you said they got everyone with part 1. They're gonna go balls to the wall in part 2.
Coming back in, let's go.
We're going. But yeah, we also get is his name Bach in the movie, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we get him. He has a crush on Glinda, like everyone except for Fiyero, because of her looks.
But Fiero's still down.
Oh yeah, Fiero's still down for sure.
He's not infatuated, but he's going to bed with her if she's up for it. He's not saying no.
He was the one that's like, let's go sneak out to the underground, not Philosophers Club that we're gonna go hang out at this time.
The Oz Dust Ballroom.
Yeah, much cleaner. I mean, they're walking under. There's fish walking above them. Nice.
I will say, in the musical, they do make it a little more that he's more into her than he was in the movie.
Into Glenda.
Yeah, but it is shown that they are like attracted to each other very superficially.
Yeah, like two like celebrities that get together because
They're like,
good
"Hey, you're
looking.
hot, I'm hot. Let's
Yeah.
bang."
Like a whole
Yeah.
Ben Affleck and
Yeah, like
Ben
he
Affleck
showed
and
up and
J-Lo.
he's just like, "All right, who's the hottest girl here? Let's do it."
Yeah. But then like underneath he's like, I really find something attractive with Elphaba, you know?
He doesn't do that
That's-
as much in the show. It's weird. Like there's a
No.
little. I mean, it eventually gets there, but they did it. They had a lot more of the. You're able to do more of the subtle, I think, things in a movie. On stage, there's only so much you can portray and still have the audience all see it, from a couple hundred feet back type thing. So
Right.
I think they weaved it in a little better in the movie that it's going to make more sense for them to be together.
Yeah.
Well, and
In the show, they make it more about how Elphaba's literally doing what's morally right. And he's like, hey, it's pretty fucked up that we're not helping her. That, we knew her and that she's doing the right thing. And we're here in, smoozing with the top of society and painting her as a bad guy when we know she's not.
Well, and so continuing with kind of this story, with Bach in the book, he's super infatuated with like Glinda. Like he sneaks into like it's like a girls only section of Shiz, and like the nanny's super upset and like kicks him out. And we don't get that, and I don't think we will. Which is fine.
No.
Like we
he has
don't.
a crush on her and that's it. And he kind of gets stuck with Nessa, who's obsessed with him.
Yeah.
And are we doing spoilers? Is that
Not yet.
I'm
I'm just talking through the book
note.
and the movie like
Side note. Did you know that guy that plays Bach is dating Ariana Grande?
Yeah, no, I knew it was SpongeBob as soon as he popped up. I was like, oh, there's the SpongeBob guy. Because that was like, he plays SpongeBob on the Broadway show, right?
I have no idea.
Didn't even know there was a SpongeBob Broadway show. No,
SpongeBob the musical.
Yep. I'm pretty sure he's SpongeBob. Because
I've
that was
never
the big thing, like Ariana is dating like the SpongeBob guy. And I thought it was like the voice actor from the cartoon. I was like, wow, that's weird, but
that'd be even funnier. So they become friends.
We kind of already talked about what happens
there.
directly. We already talked about what happens directly after the dance, where they
basically become friends.
They become friends, and then we have the scene where the professor is getting escorted out, and like you said, Fiero's like, it's pretty fucked up that she's doing the right thing and we're not helping her.
Yeah. And Glinda decides that she's gonna make Elphaba as cool as she can be to not be the social pariah that she was.
She's gonna make her popular.
Just not as popular as her. So people are actually nice to Elphaba now. They're fine with her being green, like they should have been since the beginning, since you live in Oz, but whatever. So she's actually like, this is a highlight of Elphaba's life. She's got friends, people are nice to her, she's doing stuff. Then her favorite teacher gets taken away, and it's more the animal stuff, and they're very upset. They save the lion, and then they decide, they find out that she was able to put everybody to sleep, and that's like, you know what? She's strong enough. Madame Morrible writes to the wizard, is like, hey, I got a magic girl for you. And the wizard sends an invitation and is like, come see me. Let's figure this out.
It comes in like a little balloon.
That was the weird part for me, because I was like, she's not shown any sort of sign of mastering her magic whatsoever. And
I think they just wanted the raw
She puts
power.
everyone to sleep. She puts everyone to sleep, and they're like, okay, now it's time to progress that storyline.
Yeah.
Well, and I think spoilers. Okay, the warning's up, you guys know. I think it just comes down to he was on the lookout because the elixir has something with creating the magic baby.
I don't know about that. I just know that he wanted some actual power to be more powerful. He wanted somebody under his thumb that could do magic.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess Fiero and Glinda were kind of dating, because she does say at the train scene
they're together. Yes.
Yeah, they're together, but he's been very distant and like he's not thinking, or that he is thinking.
Right, and I think that all flipped with the lion incident, because she's like, dude, you got to get your head out of your ass. There's a lot of weird shit happening in this world, and you're a prince. Like, you should be doing something if you can. And I think that's what got him to being like, maybe there is something more to life than partying and banging Ariana Grande.
And being married to a child bride like he is in the book.
Not married in the show.
Again, things that are good that they cut out from
they book. Are now he and Glinda are married in part 2.
In the movie?
Yep. In the show, where it opens up after the time skip after intermission, they're together. Like they're married.
See, which is different than the
or
book.
If not married, engaged. Like they're very serious relationship because they're at like a big party together and he's like her partner there.
Okay, so that might, I mean, obviously I think the movie's going more off the play because in the book he's married to some child bride.
Yeah, I don't think
like
they're doing any
kids
of that
together, but he's like cheating on her with.
He's also like a black guy with blue diamonds all over him.
Yeah, that was a
weird. Which is a lot weirder than someone
being green. Yeah. See, somebody must have thought that. Be like, we can't really make fun of the green girl if we got Blue Diamond walking around.
All right, so we're at the part where she gets invited to the Emerald City by the wizard via like balloon contraption that has like a walrus like clapping cymbals instead of a monkey. Which again, for his hatred of animals, it's kind of weird that he includes them in his little machines and mechanisms. But they go to the station. They have this really cool train that I guess was actually a practical effect. They actually made this train. I'm sure they spiced it up with some CGI here and there. But it was a practical train they actually made. And she's about to go. She's like, come with me. And then like Nick was saying, she's like, no, it's your moment. No, I don't want to. And then she like jumps on. She's like, oh, why not? And then we go to the Emerald City and everyone's green. So again, there's green everywhere. It's a beautiful thing. Why are they mad about her being green?
To be fair, nobody in the city was.
No, but like
nobody in the city's skin color was green. They were all wearing emerald.
But they were fine that she was green because that's why she wanted to live there.
Nobody made any sort of like at all. Nobody grimaced, nothing. They all just sang their song and then
it was just the bigot Munchkinlanders.
Yeah, them and Shiz. Those are the only people. So what happens in the city? They get their hair done. They get like makeup.
They check out the city. They love it, and they get a little bit of backstory through the Wizomania about the wizard arriving and being able to do like great magic, so they know he's supposed to be in charge, and hypes him up. And they're like, "All right, let's go see him." And they get to the wizard's house.
They talk about the tome.
Yeah, the grimoire.
So, anyways, we get to them actually getting into see the wizard. And we get a really cool contraption here. Instead of like smoke and stuff, it's more mechanical. It looks more like the stage play.
I do like that. I think that's cool. I like that you would. I mean, if he shows up there, it makes sense that he'd be able to build it out of like the materials they have.
Yeah, and it's big. It's hulking. It comes kind of out of the darkness. It'd be kind of scary to see,
especially with the flames on the side and everything.
Yeah, and then when they're like, Maribel sent us, then he's like, oh, and it like shuts down and Jeff Goldblum walks out and he's like, oh, why didn't you say, he's like, my apologies. I didn't mean to scare you with that. And everyone's like all terrified to walk out. I don't know.
That is what happens. Yes.
That is what happens.
Yep. Nick? Oh, I was just thinking about how I like how it shows that it's still like, it's a subtle hint that the wizard still doesn't have any magical power himself. He just has a great ability to make things mechanically,
which I would hope. I know some people were like, oh, there was a twist that he didn't have any power. Like, have you not seen the original movie? That was kind of the whole thing.
Or any of the parodies or anything
point of
that.
That's the whole point of the story. Yeah, but
don't
also
look behind the curtain.
I did also like the little scene where they were trying to decide on the color for the brick road.
Yeah, and they're like, yellow? I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a cool scene. Obviously, in the book, the yellow brick road's already being built by the time they get over there. But this was cool because it's like just another depth to the Wizard of Oz lore that they created it. What we see in the original is because of them. Also, it's like Jeff Goldblum like showing this nice little like dollhouse to his daughter and like trying to almost kind of be a fatherly figure in a way.
See, I wonder if he knows it's his daughter or not yet at this point.
I don't know. I kind of want to say yes, but we could come to part 2 and he might not know.
Yeah, it could go either way right now.
Yeah.
They put enough there that I'd believe it either way.
Yeah, because he has like little figures.
Part two will open up with them on Bespin fighting with lightsabers, and then Elphaba will get her hands up.
No, dude, stop being
And
stupid.
Jeff
Part two opens up and they're on the Maury Povich show. He's opening up the results. And in the case of little Elphaba,
Wizard, you are the father.
And he's gonna go, oh, and run off the stage. You know, it's gonna be crazy.
So also when they're like doing he's showing off like Oz and like the little like dollhouse stuff he put together. He like picks up a house and like flips it upside down and then like turns it over to make the balloon.
You know what? I'm gonna actually sorry, not to cut you off again, but I'm actually gonna say real quick. I think he does because he has Elphaba's doll already made.
He does
but
have
that
it.
might just be because she told him like about her. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand that, but
it's part of his sales pitch. Because he knew this girl was coming with power and had to convince her that she should be under his thumb, basically.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand. Again, he would have had all this power if he was just like, and hey, animals, they're free. Whatever. Okay. Let's focus on other stuff.
Hey, just come work with me. Animals can still talk.
Yeah,
Everything's
be like,
good.
Hey, you know what? We'll let it happen. It's good.
Yeah,
Let's do other things.
I'll reverse the animal cruelty. Just come make it rain over here or something. I don't know.
Or, and then he could have even twisted where she's like, you have no magic. He could have been like, I did. Some terrible curse was put on me that stopped my magic. And that's part of why I need you. Maybe together we can reverse it someday. Okay. You know, stuff like that to convince her. Like, as far as gaslighting goes, he ain't no pro.
Yeah, he could have been like you said, hey, my powers got taken away. I'm trying to help with these animals. If you join me, we can help.
Or if
bring balance to the force.
If he knew that was her, that he knew that she was his, he could be like, yeah, it turns out I had a daughter and my power slowly bled into her. So now she has the magic and is going to continue my legacy. And I just want to be beside her to help Oz grow and, you know, reveal that he's her dad. You know, there's so much he could have done.
My power used to be present, but now I need to destroy the one ring in order to restore that power.
Now it's in the one thing I love more than Oz. And she would have been like, Daddy, you know, like.
So is her sister his as well, or just
nope?
Okay.
No.
Because in the book, it's played off like it's someone else entirely.
Yes.
As well.
So in the book, the reason she's disabled is because the mother took these weird medicines and stuff to prevent her next child from being green.
Yeah. Yeah. She was like eating all these weird flowers and
that's why she doesn't have arms.
Yeah.
It's kind of hinted at with the movie too, because I remember them talking about the fact that she was crippled because of flowers.
Because of Elphaba. Yeah, her father at least blames Elphaba because if she wouldn't have come out green, his next daughter would have been healthy.
Could you imagine in the movie when they're playing with the dollhouse, when he gets rid of the doll, like the little house, it like lands on her sister's like figure, just like throws it because he does throw it. He's just like, oh, just get rid of it. And then he does his little dance and number. Doesn't do bad. I mean, Jeff Goldblum.
Oh, there was some foreshadowing that we actually didn't talk about. I forgot. So it makes it very clear that Madame Morrible, like her magic ability is primarily weather. And eventually she's the reason that the tornado happens that brings Dorothy to Oz.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we didn't talk about that, but that's nice.
We didn't.
Little...
Yeah, that's really the only magic you ever see her actually do is when she like clears up the wet, you know, with all that stuff. So she does have some magical ability. It's just not to the same level as Elphaba, is what I'm assuming. But she does have some magic that she's been using with the wizard, of course. And she mentions at least 2 or 3 times, I think, that her specialty is weather. They talk about that. And that leads to later on when she's creating a storm for whatever reason to stop something that Elphaba's trying to do or take her out. and that's what the tornado comes from there and brings it into. So it might be that she brings weather from other realities or something. I don't know, but the tornado is brought there, at least in the show. It's alluded that it's there and that Dorothy arrives because of Madame Morrible.
Yeah, from the sepia tone reality where everything's not in color.
Yes.
Yeah, well, also in that scene, she's like clearing up the weather and gives Elphaba the umbrella and says, "Yeah, we can't get you wet."
We can't get you wet. Exactly. And that's the only time they mention it.
Maybe the question too is, does she know that she's
if it's like the book, it would at least know that she can't get wet because everybody knows.
Yeah, well, but does she know she's the wizard's daughter?
I don't think so.
No.
But clearly they know that she can't get wet because they're the ones who tell Dorothy to melt her.
Yeah.
Actually, I don't think he says to melt her. I think he says kill her. I don't think they bring up the water. I think Dorothy does that on her own. Yeah, because she's trying to put out the fire.
Yeah, on the scarecrow, yeah. And then he's like, ooh, and she throws it and he goes back and it goes on. Yeah. I just watched that one again. It holds up.
It's almost been 100 years.
I know, it's crazy. The book is 124 years old. That's what's insane. 1900. Okay, so then they make their escape because obviously they realize. Well, first she reads out of the book, which is a kind of fun callback to the kind of children's book that they had that popped open. This one pops open.
I do like the way the book is shaped. It's really cool looking.
Yeah.
Where it kind of unfolds. That was neat.
I thought that was cool too.
And so they kind of lead her into the spell that gives the monkeys the wings.
Mm-hmm.
And she feels terrible about it. Yeah, she feels very terrible about it. Eventually she'll enslave them or something.
See, that's the part that I don't get. How does it go from her loving animals and stuff to them being like, you're going to do what I say. And then she dies and they're like, yeah.
Everyone was
the witch is dead. Woo.
I mean, this is definitely an Elseworlds story, obviously.
I'm saying if you're trying to incorporate all that's the only part that I've been I thought what?
Again, going off of our comment earlier. No, I said she was the Wicked Witch of the West, not somebody to be like. We're in the wizard's little chamber area.
She did the spells, and now she's like, "Oh, you don't have power. You just want to use me."
She gave the monkeys wings, and then they run off, and then they sing "Defying Gravity." The end. Everybody goes home.
After they almost catch fire, because the balloon gets popped, and then it's more of a heartfelt scene where they part here, because really Elphaba ditches them in the book, and here they're together. They're working together. She helps, Glinda helps Elphaba leave, gives her iconic kind of outfit that she finds.
Now, do we think up to this point, until she was about to leave, that Glinda was going to go with her?
No.
Because they both get in the balloon.
But my thought process was...
I think Glinda was going to go along with it until she had longer to think about it.
Well, so my thought process was, they're going to land the balloon somewhere in a little while, and then Glinda's going to be like, yeah, I can't do this. I can't live like a poor person. And then,
but I think at that point, just the fact that she ran off with her probably would have sealed her fate. She would have been stuck if she would have left that castle.
Well, I think the whole thing too, once the balloon popped, she doesn't have enough magic to get out of the situation. And she was like, gotta cut ties. And luckily she could be like, yeah, I was kidnapped. I was kind of just drugged through. I didn't know what was happening,
Right, but I'm saying if she would have left with her. If it didn't pop, if they would have gotten away, I don't think she could have salvaged it. Unless she turned Elphaba in.
Yeah, no, she would have had to live on the run.
Yeah. She would have been a fugitive with her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Which I don't know.
That might have turned out better for both of them in the end.
Might have.
If they had them both working against the wizard together, it probably would have been a lot quicker what happens.
I mean, yeah, but then what would have happened to her sister? Because we still know her sister is going to be the third of these, this triangle, the witch's triangle.
Not, kind of. She takes over for their dad because he dies at the end, remember?
Yeah. from the heart attack, learning that, his daughter just like, I don't know, escaped the wizard.
Ruined everything. Yeah.
All right. So, Nick, now that we've gone over the entirety of part 1, part 2 comes out next December on Christmas, I believe, 2025. What are your thoughts with this movie?
Honestly, I thought it was a decent adaptation of a stage play. There's sometimes where there's a disconnect between stage and film. I was talking with a friend of mine at work because she was singing the songs nonstop for a week, about how I thought that they did a good job with the sound design on the movie. They definitely made it sound like a stage production versus like putting a lot of behind the scenes production into it, like in a studio, which I thought was nice, like, especially with like the drums and all those other instruments. I'm excited for part 2. I now really wish to go see the live stage production the next time it comes to town, no matter how much tickets are.
David, what are your thoughts?
I think it was fantastic. As somebody who's seen the show itself, they did such a good job of translating that over to screen. And I mean, part 1, the length of it is pretty much the length of the entire show in stage format. So I was a little concerned about like, how did they do that? But they did it very well. They expounded on things the right way. They gave things a little more time to breathe. Might have dragged just a tiny bit. They probably could have shortened a couple of stuff, but overall, I think they did a fantastic job. I think they did perfect little nods to the original movie for people who had never seen the Broadway show or anything, just coming into it. The music was done really well. They stayed very true to most of that. The casting ended up being great. Again, until I saw it, I had my hesitancy on a lot of them, but I think they nailed it. To correct you, though, Wicked comes out exactly 1 year after the first one. So the official release date is November 21st. And today, literally earlier today, it was given a new name. It is now Wicked for Good instead of part 2.
That sounds like a dumb fucking change to me.
What are they going to change the first one to?
Well, it's because
Wicked for bad.
It's because the whole scene, the whole big
Wicked for animals.
Because she does have a huge scene with Glinda where they're together, and the whole thing is I have been changed for good. So I believe they're taking it from that song. So that'll probably be the big crux of the movie, kind of the same way Defying Gravity was for the first one.
Yeah, because it's like a big sparring moment, right?
Right. So it's a big emotional, it's basically they're coming together and saying goodbye at the same time song. It's a big emotional climax of the movie.
Yeah.
So that will come out exactly
sense.
1 year from the first one. So that's, I guess, a nice book-ended intermission. But no, I think they did great. There's very, very little I would change, if anything. Probably the best from stage to screen adaptation I've ever seen. The only one that I would say is maybe close would be possibly Chicago, because that movie slaps. They did a great job with that. But I think they definitely nailed it here, especially considering it's in a like fantasy world. So it's harder because you've got to build out all of Oz and everything. And you're playing a lot more with a very beloved franchise in terms of Wizard of Oz, from something that people know and really, really love. So I think they gave it the right amount of respect. They did the cameos fantastic, where they were noticeable and big enough that you knew they happened without taking over. They didn't feel cheap and shoved in there like some cameos do. And overall, I mean, I'd probably give it 9 out of 10, almost 10 out of 10. It was fantastic, and I just hope they're able to stick the landing with part 2.
Nick, what do you give it?
I would say 9 out of 10. Right along with David there. I would, yeah. I'm curious to see how they're gonna land part 2. Keegan, as you and I both know from earlier deep dives, part 2 hasn't been kind lately. Like specifically for Joker, that was an awful part 2. But we'll see how the rest of Wicked plays out now.
I think what they have going for them is that it was always planned to be 2 parts, and that they filmed everything at the same time. And it's not just a sequel, that the story is specifically made to be 2. Because honestly, we said all we needed to say with Joker 1.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we didn't need a sequel with Joker Folie à Deux. Yeah, as far as Wicked, I thought it was good. David did mention that the length of the movie is long, especially compared to the stage show or compared to the material it's based off of. We've seen that type of kind of situation roll out with like The Hobbit, where
Well,
it landed on its face and did not work. And I think it
okay, but
works
in
here
that one,
good.
they gave it a whole movie too much.
2 movies
Well,
too
and
much.
I was just noticing too, Keegan, going off of books, Wizard of Oz versus Wicked. Like this is the story that started it all, and this is what's current.
Well, in Wicked, it's only like a first 115, 130 pages is this movie.
Yeah.
So the other 306 or whatever are going to be maybe part 2. But yeah, I think they did well. There are maybe a couple scenes where it drags, but not too many. I think the world is developed well. I love.
I will say, I don't feel like I was there for almost 3 hours.
No, it doesn't
Like, it
feel.
does
No.
fly by pretty well. Oh, I would say 90% of the pacing is spot on.
Yeah, there's only a
Yeah.
small little. I mean, at some point we got to nitpick. When things aren't terrible, you start nitpicking little things. The characters are likable in this one. Everyone gets their own kind of little moments to shine here. I do love the sets because either they're going to have to incorporate CGI, but they do it in a seamless way. It seemed like here, and they have a lot more practical sets, as well as they do kind of cinematography wise set it up like a play. So some of the shots you're getting feel like you could be watching it from a musical.
You kind of get that wider, yeah.
Yeah.
And I do like that they did live singing on set that they filmed instead of the like voiceover afterwards kind of thing. I think that added a lot.
That kind of plays off of my comment of the sound production sounding a lot more like a stage play versus a studio like made it,
Bingo. You can tell that it wasn't filtered to death and all through, it's actually them there in that space singing.
You can tell that with just the drums. Just like drums in a movie versus drums in a stage play. Like
so different.
So different. I was listening to the drums of the song and of all the songs, and like, yeah, I felt that snare. I felt
that you feel that reverb
cymbals.
and that, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Keegan, what do you give? What do you give Wicked?
Well, I haven't finished my explanation yet.
I don't give a fuck. What do you give it?
-5. How about that?
Good. Oh my god! I'm never coming back on here.
It's because she's green, isn't it?
You racist piece of shit. You are a piece of shit.
So I watched it in 3D as well. 3D is kind of what you come to expect. There wasn't too many scenes that played off really well. I think all the actors who were chosen did well in their parts, and there's a lot of fun little Easter eggs to who they will become, or to the Wizard of Oz, or just little tie-ins here and there. So yeah, I'd give it probably like a solid 8.5 out of 10. It's a good movie. I think it's one of those musicals too. If you don't like musicals, you'll probably enjoy it. Like, I think it can bridge that gap.
It's not one of those musicals that just bogs you down with being a musical. You're not like, Jesus, another song.
Yeah.
The only way
are catchy and good that move the story along. It's not just like, of course they're gonna fucking sing about it,
It wasn't like a Disney film. Like, it wasn't like Frozen where there's just random songs thrown in, like we finish each other's sandwiches, and it wasn't stupid shit.
That's
like
what I was gonna say.
David, I could always count on you for the assist there. No, like I will say, my family and I, we saw it in IMAX. We didn't see it in 3D, but we saw it in IMAX. And my dad, not a musical person, he didn't know it was a musical until we got to the theater, and then he was like, "Oh fuck." But he ended up really liking it, and then we talked about it afterwards. I asked my family, what was your favorite song, and my dad's like, I actually really enjoyed this one.
And I mean, it makes sense because the original Wizard of Oz is a musical. Like the movie was one of the first big musicals out there on film. So
again,
I get it.
Somewhere Over the Rainbow, one of the most iconic songs of all time.
Exactly. So I mean, there's so many songs in that movie, and I get it. It fits the vibe of the original movie.
Yeah. I think if you like Wizard of Oz, you'll like it. Like everyone said, they were very sincere with the adaptation, that they were trying to pay homage to that, but do their own thing at the same time.
And I feel like what's very important, they don't ruin the Wizard of Oz. Like,
yeah,
they never paint it. I mean, unless part 2 goes wildly off base. I don't believe, at least in the show, maybe in the book they did, but in the movie, I don't think they're going to do anything that disparages any of the famous characters you already know and love. Mm-hmm. Like Glinda, even if she was kind of misguided, a little airheady, like she's still a good person at heart. Dorothy is not painted as like the major villain. All the, if anything, the Tin Man's the only one that you're like, hey, calm down, buddy. And he was always everybody's least favorite anyways, so. Wait, I guess Wicked does make the Wizard into more of a villain than the Wizard of Oz.
Well, the Wizard of Oz still had the Wizard as somewhat of a,
because he was still a snake
kind of person.
Yeah, he was still like a shady guy, but he meant well. And he wants to get Dorothy home and go home himself. It wasn't like a power-hungry thing like what we see here.
Yeah, I guess he wasn't like exterminating like talking animals.
Yeah,
he's not doing that in the original.
In the classic Wizard of Oz, he's more of like a politician almost, just a guy that's like, I guess I'll be in charge.
Wait, it's almost like he was based off a politician, David. William McKinley.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so Nick, if you want to leave now, it's fine. I just want to do a quick what we think is going to happen in part 2.
I think again, the Maury Povich show, that seems pretty spot on for me. You are the father.
That would be the funniest thing ever. Like in Emerald City, Maury Povich.
Just have someone playing him.
I want Maury.
It's Maury.
It's either Maury himself or.
Is he still alive?
Yeah, yes, Jerry is the one that's dead.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I knew one of them. Yeah. Well, David, what aspects from the play, obviously spoilers, is fine.
Yeah, I think I didn't want to leave because I wanted to be part of the discussion, but I actually don't know anything about what's going to happen in part 2. And
then let's do you.
Do you first. Do you first. Yeah.
I mean,
to get from where we left it to her being melted.
There's obviously going to be some more strife and butting of heads and, actual, not chaos. So it's not chaos, but more conflict that's going to lead to Elphaba being seen as an actual wicked witch. Right? Because part 1, the way it ends, she's a good guy. She's a hero through and through. She's doing the right thing. So obviously there has to be some more conflict.
Yeah, it's like the dangers of propaganda, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're saying they just have to, more like normal people have to see her doing like some sketchy stuff, right?
Yeah, that, or they're going to set up a situation where she's going to be in the wrong afterwards.
Okay.
I never really thought about it before, but this is actually coming out at a great time because it is very kind of satirical with the whole thing with like fake news, with what happens with Elphaba. About how if you're the one who controls the news and the media, you can spin whatever story you want.
Yep. There was people that I knew from college who were making that parallel.
So what about you, Keegan? What do you think's going to happen in part 2?
I don't want to spoil nothing.
You can go ahead.
No.
Are you gonna be talking about part 2 for a little while, or are you gonna keep it short?
We're about to be done, I think. I gotta do stuff.
Yeah, I think we're about to be done.
Okay.
This just actually came up on my feed as well. Apparently, Wicked is the first Broadway adaptation in 16 years to gross over $500 million at the global box office. The
I'm sure.
film
I'm
had
sure
a
it's grossed more than that
$145
already.
million budget. So
Yeah.
they've more than doubled what they spent to make it. And it's going to keep going. I think it's going to get some big Christmas season numbers. I think into January, they're going to be riding a pretty big wave.
Well,
I
December,
really-
I know they release a
Sing-along version.
sing-along one, yeah.
Yeah, like the
Not
day
only
after
that, but
Christmas.
we know, come September, October, they're going to do a re-release.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're going to do a version where you can go watch 1 straight into number 2 as soon as it comes out.
Yeah.
I was actually half tempted after the movie was done to go buy it because of the AMC I thought I saw it at was selling hats. They were selling Glinda hats, and then they were selling purple just Wicked hats. I'm half tempted to go get a purple Wicked hat.
I know the merch at the Broadway show has always been awesome.
All right.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're on the right path. Like we said, I hope part 2 manages to be just as good, if not better, and conclude it in a satisfactory way that everybody can enjoy.
Yeah. If anything, I think it'll just follow the stage play and kind of the stuff that happens there. Maybe it'll be a bit darker. I don't think it'll get super dark compared to this one, just because obviously they want to keep the money
they
flow.
kind of have to, I think, to keep most of the songs relevant.
Yeah.
To like the story beats. I will say this though, I did hear this is going to be the one where we get an original song that wasn't in the show.
Yeah.
Because if there's not an original song, it can't be nominated for an Oscar. That's why we're not going to see Wicked Part 1 win any awards for Best Music, even though it had fantastic songs. If it's not original to that piece, it doesn't qualify more for an Oscar. So to get around that, Part 2 is going to have some original piece. I don't know who's in it. They haven't said whose song it is. If it's both of them, one of them, whatever. But there will be at least some quote-unquote new content, even for people who've seen the show several times.
Imagine had Ariana Grande waited to release the song "We Can't Be Friends" and change the lyrics around to not be romantic, but about Glinda and
I don't know if that
would
would have won any awards, but why not?
It would have been funny. It would have been funny.
I'm sure it's going to be some kind of like power ballad from one of them.
Probably
both. If we're honest, it'll probably be a duet. If I had to guess.
So my one, I guess, kind of prediction, I think the story of Wizard of Oz that we know will be told more in part 2 than we know from like the book or the play. I think it's going to be a little bit more integral
we're going to see
the
more
story.
Of Dorothy?
I do, yeah. I think they'll have someone who played Dorothy.
I'd be fine with that. I'd love to see more of the classic characters.
Yeah. And I think it'll fit in with where everyone kind of goes in the story. Not to spoil anything, but to kind of get more of their viewpoint and see that aspect after the witch is gone and have their memories come back. Obviously, you're going to have to tell a little bit more of that story. So I think we'll get more of it in here than we do in the play or the book.
Right. Like, I'd love to see, like, the wizard talking to, like, Madame Morble or something after he sends Dorothy to go get the witch.
Yeah.
Just be like, some kid walked in, whatever, you know?
Yeah, I sent her. She'd probably. What if there's a scene where he's like, "Yeah, it's the 4th one this month. We'll see if she survives."
Like, yeah, it'd be interesting to see more of that, or, you know, Glinda's first interaction with her. What does she think of that? You know, and all that. Like, yeah. I'd be very down to see more of Dorothy's story, kind of concurrently with what Elphaba was going through at the same time, and how Elphaba plays into that story. Like, I'd love to see that classic scene after her sister dies, like the witch showing up and being mad at her, like, I'll get you and your dog, you know, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Or like her standing on the little house in the woods, like just waiting for them to come around, you know.
Right. Yeah. And like looking in the crystal ball, like I would definitely like to see all of that incorporated in what's the real story.
Yeah, and I think with a little extra playtime, obviously they have more in the movie than they do this show. I think it's hard for them to resist. They know people know the IP. Why not throw a little bit more into it?
And we really need to see how the Cowardly Lion becomes Aslan.
Yes. And how she becomes a dragon at the end. because Dorothy's a dragon.
Absolutely.
That's right.
And then she ends up owning an NBA team in the real world in 1945. So, David, for anyone that wants to go on some abnormal adventures, maybe to a Wizard of Oz museum or two, where can they find this stuff?
They can check us out at youtube.com/abnormal voyages. Just go to YouTube, put in Abnormal Voyages, it'll pop up. We got a couple of Wizard of Oz ones on there that we have done. We've visited a couple of locations in Kansas. And I can't promise this one anytime soon. Hopefully, before part 2 comes out, we do have another Wizard of Oz episode coming out that is a cemetery safari that is specifically visiting the final resting locations of most of the original cast members, the big ones and everything. Frank L. Baum's grave, Judy Garland's grave. We've hit a lot of them already to film, and there's a couple more we need to grab. But that should be a very interesting episode when it comes out. So look forward to that. Hopefully, I would say probably next October-ish. Kind of fits in that good Halloween spot and going into the Wicked Part 2. So, yeah, that'll be out there. But we have tons of other great adventures between now and then. So, Abnormal Voyages. Check us out.
Nick, anything from you? People should be on the... What about like a Sonic possible deep dive, something like that? Sonic? Sonic 3?
That's through your channel. I don't have a channel of my own yet.
Hey, I was wondering, did you want to plug me? Did you want me to plug
Keegan,
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, hey Nick, do you happen to know anybody on YouTube right now? Actually, yes, I know you do, you dick. No, actually, I do plan on getting a capture here in early 2025 to try to start up a gaming thing. So
you're gonna do
hopefully Twitch or YouTube. We'll see what happens.
Why not both?
Yeah, you can do both.
Why not both? I
Stream
could do
right to
both. I really want to do a playthrough of the Zelda Echoes of Wisdom, because when I played the game myself, I was loving the idea of Zelda being like a sassy princess.
The protagonist and stuff. Yeah.
A sassy protagonist, just like I'd go to the town and somebody would be like, "You better get to the king. He's looking for you." And I'm like, excuse me, you don't get to tell me what to do. As a matter of fact, for that, I'm gonna break all your pots.
And then I'm gonna make duplicates of those pots and break those too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, don't even try me right now.
Yeah, dude, you could definitely do it on Twitch and then take that capture and edit it for the videos.
Hang on, David. Before we get to that, Keegan, is there anybody you would like to plug real quick?
Yeah, Keegan, is there anything you got going on?
Anything you got going on?
I don't know if you guys want. We have done some more deep dives as of late. We did one with Young Guns too. As David said, we did find a grave. It's been hotly sought after, I suppose, at least in some sectors of the internet. But it's the brother of, I guess, very controversial to a handful of people, like two. It's the brother of Billy the Kid, Joe Antrim. We might also be doing some stuff with some of the Ghostbusters Open for Business and Texas Regional Response Team. I can't say too much. Those videos are early in production, but yeah, keep an eye out. You might see us on their videos. But yeah, we'll be back for more deep dives though. To your left, for more about us here at Culz. To your right, don't forget to like and subscribe. And yeah, join us. Let us know a movie you want us to deep dive or your predictions for Wicked 2. Tell us in the comments below.
And as we kind of mentioned, between now and next year, when part 2 comes out, every couple of months, we're going to be doing another Wizard of Oz themed deep dive, diving into not only the original movie, but some of those sequels, some of the spin-offs, all the other flavors of the wonderful world of Oz. So get you hyped up. This is kind of the yellow brick road to Wicked Part 2.
Maybe even the book.
Yeah. So, come along with us, follow the yellow brick road, and eventually it's going to lead us to the Emerald City of Wicked Part 2.
And who knows, maybe for Wicked Part 2, we'll do a big fan event. We'll all go together early to a advanced screening or something.
I would actually be down if we did that. If we did the one showing, like if they had one showing David described earlier, where they did.
Like the dual one where you see part 1 and then 2?
Leading into part 2, yeah.
I would totally do that in like an IMAX or something. I'll do an all-day Wicked.
I was going to say the 1, 2 that David went to for this one sounded pretty cool.